Yes, please.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
See what you-
Welcome to meeting 4513, ordinary meeting Punnisville Council. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes for everyone to find a seat if we could. There seems to be standing room only in the gallery. We've got to try and get some more chairs.
When you told them this, okay?
Yeah, right, we'll have to just. Sorry, councillors. Welcome to ordinary meeting 4513 of Huntersville Council. If I can get you all to stand. I'd like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, of elders past, present and emerging, on which this meeting takes place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and visitors in the gallery. We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties and trust to us to the common good and as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Be seated. There are no apologies for this evening's meeting. Any declarations of interest? There being no declarations, I'll move to the confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4512 held 17th of October 2022. Councillor Sanderson, moved.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an alternate motion if I could. That would be that, going back to that page.
For the minutes.
Yeah. The minutes of ordinary meeting 4512 held on 17 October 2022 be amended to follow the proceedings in brief format formerly used by council, including the removal of the comments and questions and responses by councillors and details of debate. 2, following amendment of these minutes, they be brought back to an extraordinary meeting of council for confirmation. And 3, the format of future minutes follow the proceedings in brief format formerly used by councils in the past.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams. Has that been sent through, Councillor Sanderson?
I just got handed over a memory stick. I've had no internet all day.
Whilst we're getting that correct for the minutes of this meeting, Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to talk to
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
motion?
I have considerable concern of the way these minutes have been presented. I think with minutes, you've got 2 alternatives. Either they are proceeding in brief format that we traditionally use, or alternatively go to a full Hansard. Now, if you went to a full Hansard, no one would bother to read them. They'd just be too dense. I think it is wrong to selectively choose things that councillors can or have said. I know that in some areas there were items where my comments have been referred to without fully quoting. It's slightly disadvantaged that my argument hasn't been fully spelled out in the minute, where those who have spoken to counter what I have said have had their account fully accounted for. That clearly is a bias against me personally, because I tend to explain things in a rather complex fashion, as I think most councillors would acknowledge. So I think it's important we go back to the format of minutes that served this council so well for such a long time, and that in the future, in the future we could do that. In the meantime, I think it's essential that we correct these minutes. I think the corrections would be too great for us to attempt to do tonight. I therefore would recommend that we have those minutes amended and brought back to the next ordinary meeting of council.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Just wanting to, could you just confirm that that is the exact recommendation you've handed up? that number 1 minutes of ordinary meeting 4512 held on 17th of October be amended to follow the proceedings in brief format normally used by council, including the removal of A, comments, questions and responses by councillors, and B, details of debate. 2, following amendment of these minutes, they be brought back to the next ordinary meeting of council for confirmation. And 3, the format of future meetings follow the proceedings in brief format normally used by council in the past. Councillors, any debate, any speakers against the motion? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a query. Your argument for putting forward this motion tonight is that you're concerned that not everything that you say in a meeting will be included, but a proceedings in brief format creates an even more brief account of what happened.
Correct.
Councillors, any speakers for?
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I share Councillor Sanderson's concerns in this regard. Council for the last 161 years has used the in brief format. Most if not all organisations, it's good governance practice to restrict minutes and outcomes of meetings to the actual decisions and resolutions made at those meetings. For these sort of meetings to have attempt by staff to critique or to add.
Councillor Williams, I would ask that you do not cast aspersions on the council staff. Please keep your comments to the motion at hand.
Well, the motion at hand is that at the moment we have a set of minutes which is uncharacteristic to minutes that are normally presented to this council that have extracts from what councillors have said rather than just reporting on the outcomes of the decisions of council. I agree that if you're going to go to this process of attributing every discussion or every comment made by councillors to a councillor, then I would require it to be done verbatim so that the full context of any comment or any question is given due reference in the minutes. So I think this is a major departure from what we've done in the past. I think it's fraught with danger in terms of people being taken out of context. So I support Councillor Sanderson's motion.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers against the motion? Councillor Vergara.
I quite like the minutes. In terms of the risk of context or miscontext, they're recorded. Got the recordings. The verbatim can be obtained from a recording quite easily if a councillor is concerned it can be misquoted or taken out of context.
Thank you, Councillor Vergara. Any other speakers for the motion? Sorry, Councillor Quinn, do you have a question?
Reading it again, Mr. Mayor.
Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson, right of reply. Councillor Quinn, you look like you might have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm probably not going to support the motion in its current form. I do agree that there is more in these minutes than has been previously the case. I'm also aware that we have a new officer who has done these minutes, and I commend that officer on the detail and diligence that's gone into it. I do agree with number 3 in the motion that's there, that the future minutes follow the proceedings in brief format that we've used in the past, which simply records motions moved, amendments moved, etc.
Do I hear a foreshadowed motion?
Well, I'm going to move an amendment that the recommendation that Councillor Sanderson has put forward simply be just number 3.
3. That's
Go back to the format that we've had, and it would probably actually make the job of the minute taker somewhat easier as well.
that's moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Preston. Councillor Quinn, have you spoken to that adequately?
Look, Mr. Mayor, I'm just conscious where, for a staff member to have to go back and rewrite the minutes again, I personally think at this point in time is rather petty. I think the outcome that we're after is simply to record the proceedings in brief, what the decisions of the resolutions of councils are, and the toing and froing in those resolutions in terms of formal amendments, just as I'm doing now, rather than the conversational stuff that has been included in these minutes. So I'm not going to give council staff extra work to do to make a correction, which I believe, in the minutes as we have them tonight, they're fine. And but moving forward, let's keep it simple.
Sure, that's appreciated, councillor Quinn. Any other speakers against? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to speak against the amendment for the similar reasons I've stated towards the motion. But to actually agree that the current minutes before us are not the way we're going to go forward, these minutes will stay on the record forever. And I think they should be in the format that council has agreed to have the minutes in. So to leave them as they are, I think is confusing and is not the right thing to do.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Any other speakers for the amendment? Against the amendment, councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I mean, as councillor Williams has pointed out, we do have minutes that I think do not properly reflect the argument of being the things that I said that were missed out, whereas others would have better recorded. That I think is inappropriate. I believe they need to be corrected. I don't believe the correction is all that difficult. It's a matter of deletion rather than any addition. So I don't believe it'd be putting the council officer to all that much concern. I do have concern at Councillor Gara's suggestion that these can be looked up as a video recording to see what actually occurred. Well, that's a pretty long way to go about, finding out what actually happened. That's something that you look at if you're unsure of what the minutes are recording. But I believe we have a duty to ensure that all of our minutes will truly reflect the meeting. I do have my concerns about the minutes for our last meeting.
Thank you, councillor Sanderson. Any other speakers for the amendment? Against the amendment, councillor Quinn, right of reply? No. If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. The amendment against carried. The amendment becomes the motion. Any other speakers for the motion? Against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We now move to item 2.1. Oh, so move the minutes as recorded. Yeah, sorry, councillor Quinn.
So we are moving the minutes as, sorry, is that a now separate motion?
It'll have to be.
It'll have to be.
Sorry.
Yep, good point.
Confirmation minutes, an ordinary meeting 4512 held 17th October 2022. Moved councillor Quinn, seconded councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Noting councillor Williams and Sanderson is voting against. Now move to item 2.1, Merrill minute about the passing of Carl Reeves. I'll read the recommendation. I'll read the report. It is with great deep sadness that we recognise the passing of Hunters Hill resident and sailing champion Carl Reeves. Carl passed away on the 13th of October 2022, aged 82. Carl was born on 14th of July 1940. The same year, his grandfather Edgar Reeves was mayor of Hunters Hill. He grew up in Bonifon Road before his family moved to Passy Avenue and attended Hunters Hill Primary School, then North Sydney Boys High School. His childhood foreshadowed his future as a champion sailor. He and his friends would fashion makeshift canoes and sail the Lane Cove River. During his teens, the Reeves family informally adopted the late Ben Lexon, who would later go on to become an America's Cup yacht designer. Together, the boys learned to build boats from Carl's father, Jim. Carl's success in sailing was shared with Lexon, and then the boys honed their skills and went on to compete in a duo in professional sailing competitions. Carl married the Reeves family friend and Woolwich local, the late Alison Reeves, née Weller, in 1971. They moved into a home together on Warrambie Street in 1975. Carl was extremely active in the Hunters Hill community in multiple facets. He had a passion for protecting the heritage and leafy character of Hunters Hill and was heavily involved in the National Trust and the Hunters Hill Trust. He supported his wife Alison in founding the Hunters Hill Quilters, and both were founding members of the Foreshore 2000 group, initiative that ensured that public access would remain to the Go Paddock and the Woolwich Dock. In his sailing career, Carl was part of the International Flying Dutchman class of Australia. He competed at the 1968 Summer Olympics as part of the Flying Dutchman sailing event, where he placed fourth. His fanaticism for fitness meant that he ran the length of Hunters Hill area 6 days a week up until his knee surgery. After that, he continued to walk instead. Throughout his life, Carl befriended people the world over with his charm and warmth. Carl will be remembered for his incredible sailing career and his ever-wavering dedication to the character of Hunters Hill. That's the Mayor minutes. So moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's very sad to hear of Carl's passing. I knew Carl very well over many, many years and had the pleasure of discussions on his beautiful veranda overlooking Lane Cove River. He was a true gentleman, and I think what you've got in your mayoral minute does him justice. He was a person that was totally committed to Hunters Hill and to a whole range of activities in his life, and as you've mentioned, particularly sailing. He was a very creative and constructive person, and just about everything he used or did, whether it's a sailing boat or a motorboat or whatever, he built it himself, normally under the house. And Councillor Sanders and I went to his memorial at the Royal Yacht Club, and so many people spoke about how wonderful he was and how dedicated he was to his family, to his sport, and to the community in general. And as it's mentioned in here, he befriended people all over the world. I particularly remember an event where Bill Jenkin interviewed Carl and his beautiful wife, Alison, on their veranda in a very relaxed and informal way. And I had the pleasure of editing that video and putting it up on YouTube. And if anybody really wants to see the essence of Carl and Alison and what really makes people in Hunters Hillian, have a look on it. Just Google YouTube, a veranda chat. And it highlights not only their contribution to this community, but to the broader community and their passion. And it's one of the things that sticks in my mind, what Carl said, is that Hunters Hill, it's worth fighting for. And I think that is the essence of what Carl was about. He was a strong, competitive person, very compassionate, very engaged in his community. And I think we'll all miss him.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't speak for Carl's immense contribution to the broader Hunters Hill community necessarily, but what I can remark on is his pure friendliness and warmth. Carl lived in the home at the rear of my parents' house, and he's the first memory I have of a neighbour that was a complete stranger, but who always told stories of his family, his sporting endeavours, and went out of his way to say hello, have a chat, even over the fence. He'll be missed by Warrambi Street especially, but I know the broader Hunters Hill community will mourn his presence.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the privilege of attending the memorial for Carl Rives with Councillor Williams, and a lot was said about his life. I mean, Carl is about 13 years older than me, but our parents probably were in similar ages. So I can relate to the kind of upbringing that he had, and that is that you can do everything yourself. And Carl did live that way. He chose a simple life, doing things himself rather than paying others to do them. He is an amazing person. I can remember as a kid sailing on the Lane Cove River and seeing these beautiful Flying Dutchmen sailing on the river. Obviously, Carl was among them. Flying Dutchmen are quite an amazing boat that very narrow, round bilge, a massive genoa, extremely difficult boat to sail, and an even harder boat to sail well. To think that someone was capable of, with his father and brother, of building a Flying Dutchman under their house, getting to the Mexico Olympics and coming in fourth place is just absolutely astounding. Carl was an amazingly gifted sailor. And, you know, as far as Flying Dutchmen go, few people could sail them, even fewer could sail them well. That just carried on in the career he had in sailing, his involvement with America's Cup challenges and so on. Carl, one of the things was emphasising before is that Carl and Alison were always a team, and that teamwork was always there. Carl wouldn't hang around the club after races drinking with his mates. He got home to Alison. And Alison was one of our most amazing residents also. Alison filled him out with the saving of our foreshores, the work she did for this community, the groups that she had, including through quilting and so on. I guess it's very sad to see Carl go, particularly in suffering dementia in the later part of his life. But I guess one of the positive things about this life that is, as Councillor Williams mentioned, the Rise family have been part of Hunters Hill for quite some time, including a mayor in the 40s. Since that time, or since then, I've Carl and Alison's daughter, Jay, I believe, will acquire the family home, and she's currently doing it up. So there is some prospect of another couple of generations of this amazing family to live in Hunters Hill.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other councillors wish to make a contribution? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We won't make Councillor Prieston declare an interest. We now move to item 3.1, notices of motion. Councillor Williams. Oh, sorry, there are speakers to this motion before you move it, Councillor Williams. I'll call Dr. Alastair Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I speak in support of the motion. I understand that Montefiore already impacts on the amenity of local residents due to the congestion created by service traffic and by street parking. The flyer distributed by Montefiore in a very limited fashion proposes a huge increase in the number of residents, many housed in multi-storey buildings that would be quite unacceptable under our current LEP. So they're banking on the fact that they don't have to observe any of the rules that currently control development here. In the interest of allowing the community to discuss this development on the basis of facts rather than fears, I urge Council to hold a public meeting at the earliest opportunity after receiving a planning proposal for redevelopment of the Montefiore site.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Any questions of Dr. Sharp? Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks for speaking, Mr. Sharp. Dr. Sharp, good to see you again. Just on to that point, one of the things you said is proposes, and the other thing you said about dealing in facts rather than fears. I wonder, and I'm putting you on the spot through you, Mr. Mayor, whether somebody might be able to explain what council knows to date, what the process has been to date, and what the process will need to be before any proposal even crosses our letterbox.
Councillor, I'll give the General Manager an opportunity to respond, but I do also believe that he's prepared a specific document with the media team at Council and has already put that up on the website, but I'll let the General Manager respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Acting Director of Town Planning, Sharam, may want to add to this, but I guess the first thing to note is that Council does not have any proposal before it at the moment. For those who have looked, initial plans and concepts are on Montefiore's website, of which residents can contact them directly with their concerns. So just want to reiterate again that Council does not have any proposal before it. So if and when that proposal does come through, there may be consideration to change what they're thinking at the moment based on community feedback, but I can't talk for Montefiore. In terms of Council, we have had one informal meeting with them for them to explain what their proposal was. That was several months ago, and that's it. I was aware that, which Councillor Sanderson brought to my attention a few weeks back, that a meeting was held. Council wasn't even advised of that meeting. And I expressed to the CEO of the organisation that I thought it was appropriate that we were informed of that meeting so we could tell our residents. As the Mayor alluded to, we have done our best to explain to our ratepayers and constituents the process that would need to be followed. That is documented on our website, and we can't really say much more than that because we're talking to something that we don't know about because there is no proposal. Mr. Mayor, just conscious of time, and anybody post tonight can have a look on the website with that. But if you wish, I can read those bullet points out if that's what you would like.
Would that assist, Councillor Craswell? Yes,
Please,
yes.
thank
Yeah. So, should a proponent initiate, and this doesn't just apply, this is the general rules. Should a proponent initiate a planning proposal, the formal process would be as follows. Firstly, planning proposal lodged with council seeking to amend the Hunters Hill Local Environmental Plan, or the LEP. 2, council undertakes assessment of the proposal and forms a view as to whether the proposal has strategic and site-specific merit. This would include referral to the local planning panel. 3, if supported, council would submit the planning proposal to the Department of Planning and Environment for gateway determination. 4, following gateway determination, the planning proposal would go on public exhibition. 5, final assessment of the planning proposal, and if supported, preparation of the draft LEP review and finalisation. Once finalised, the LEP may be made, notified and come into effect. And finally, the proponent would need to lodge a development application to seek consent for any development. But all of that only obviously is activated if and when council actually receives a proposal, which at this point in time we have not.
Thank you, General
Thank you,
Manager.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, any other questions of Dr. Sharp? Not? Thank you, Dr. Sharp.
Thanks, Michelle.
I will now call Mr. Robert Hayes. Mr. Hayes, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Very few Hunters Hill residents know about the proposed Montefiore development project, and even fewer would realise the possible impacts on them and potentially the whole municipality. A very small number of nearby residents were letterboxed and attended the redevelopment 2-hour open day on September the 25th. There's been no other Montefiore consultation since. The Montefiore master plan proposes tripling the current building height limit. It shows 2 6-storey buildings, 2 4-storey buildings fronting Barons Crescent, multiple 2-storey buildings and a major underground car park, including a loading dock and entrance from Barons Crescent. The new buildings will tower over Barons Crescent neighbours, creating a canyon effect, raise occupant density, increase traffic volume, change local area traffic flows, and cause visual impact, overshadowing, loss of privacy, and nighttime noise. In short, the development will seriously impact the character and integrity of the area. This blatantly offends the rules and protections of the current Hunters Hill Local Environmental Plan 2012, which guides Hunters Hill building development and limits building heights to 2 stories. The aims, objectives, rules and protections of the current LEP are primarily designed to maintain and protect the existing character and integrity of our garden suburb. In order to do what they want, Montefiore intends to submit a planning proposal asking council to change the current LEP for them, even though it's a legislative instrument intended for the whole municipality. But it's not just Montefiore's nearby residents who are impacted by this redevelopment. It will more widely affect Hunters Hill through increased traffic, more pressure on public services and infrastructure, and more costs to council. Worst of all, changes to the LEP may impact the whole municipality by setting a precedent for future developers wanting to change their zoning and building heights as well. So it's essential, as soon as Montefiore's planning proposal is received, council invites all of the Hunters Hill community to a public meeting to inform them about the redevelopment and the broader implications of changing the LEP. I therefore strongly support the motion moved by councillors Williams and Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Councillors, any questions of Mr. Hayes? Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, probably this will bounce back through you, Mr. Mayor, but to you first. When we receive a planning proposal, do you feel that it would be of benefit to the community for us to go straight out to them with it, or that we actually take some time to assess it, understand the implications for the community, and be able to support the community in how we look at it together? So my concern is around the language of as soon as we receive it. I guess, what do you think about that idea that council is given time, that the expert officers and general manager is given time to talk it through, think it through, look at the legal implications, look at what our options are with the council and then with the community, rather than just pop it straight out?
My response to that, I think, would be Councillor Williams' proposal tonight. I think the wording of the motion is that a public meeting be called as soon as practical after the receipt of the proposal. And I guess then it comes down to an interpretation of the word practical. That might mean that the council has to inform itself to the point where a public meeting is well informed enough and the councillors are well informed enough to have a sensible meeting. So without being prescriptive about it, I think the wording of the motion as it stands can be interpreted in that way, that the council and the councillors can be well prepared.
Which brings me then to through you, Mr. Mayor, does that not speak to, I think it was point 2 that the general manager read out in his list of notes there? Do you still have it in front of you, Mr. General Manager?
I do, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
General Manager.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Second point, Deputy Mayor, was council undertakes assessment of the proposal, informs a view as to whether the proposal has strategic and site-specific merit. This will include referral to the LPP.
So that point 2 doesn't specifically say that we would consult at that point. Is that what you're saying?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, probably do. Well, the first thing is we don't know what we're assessing.
No.
Yeah.
Of course, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, but look, I think, to be fair, I tend to agree with Mr. Hayes, and that is that the key word here is practical. So we wouldn't want to hold a public meeting unless we had some time to look if and when the proposal comes in, so that we can provide informed information that has been preliminarily assessed. I would think it wouldn't be common sense to just hold a meeting literally a day after we get the proposal when we haven't had time to assess it and can actually provide some thorough information to people attending that meeting. So I think the key is practical.
And so I think the answer is that this is a process that does get followed.
Yes. Councillors, any other questions of Mr. Hayes? Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, look, what's your perception of a public meeting?
I think rather than, in this case, rather than just a few selected recipients of a notice about the concept of the forthcoming project, which happened by, I think, a selective letterbox drop, probably in Barron's Crescent and bits of Garza Avenue and the surrounds. And those particular people were invited to a short presentation at a slightly inconvenient time on a Sunday morning. And they got to see, I guess, a euphemistic presentation of the project. So there were about 10 clipboards. On those clipboards, there was a thing called the pathway, the approval pathway, and I guess that goes close to some of the stuff that General Manager was talking about. And the key thing, I think, is that the first step in this pathway towards, I guess, the ultimate game of a development approval was to start off by changing the LEP, because if they don't change the LEP in their favour, then the project is dead in the water. I'm sure it wouldn't make economic sense. It wouldn't make business sense to them if they were limited to two-storey. It wouldn't be worth doing, I don't believe. So that's the first step in the process. But what concerns me, I think the councillors, is that first step in the process is a big step. And as I said, the problem is that the LEP, it's not just a document that can be altered for one development or another. It's a document that applies municipality-wide. And it's a legislative instrument. It's an important document. And the principles of that document are absolutely fundamental to the maintenance of the character and integrity of Hunters Hill. And that theme, I've read the LEP numerous times now, and it's a consistent theme all the way through it, how the place looks, feels, the height of buildings, the garden nature of the suburb, that all that is absolutely critical to the LEP. And that is the overarching document, my understanding, of this set of rules about development in Hunters Hill. And we're looking to change that first without even knowing at that stage what the project is going to look like, which will come later on.
I get
Councillor
what you're
Quinn.
saying, but I want to come back to the point, how do you perceive a public meeting
Sorry,
taking
yes,
place and what happens at that
I
public meeting?
had to digress on this a bit.
I'm hearing all the other stuff loud and clear.
Okay. Look, a public meeting to me is one that's open to the whole municipality, not just a small part of the municipality, which this open day was to. And a few of us organised a public meeting, which was well attended. There were 40 people, you were there. So there's a lot of interest in this, and I think people across the municipality need to know what's happening in Montefiore for its own sake. Some of those people will be directly affected by it, like I am. I have a 4-storey building on the high side of the street right opposite me. And other people, I think, will be very concerned by the change in the LEP and by the dangers that come from that for future developments and a general potential rewriting of some of the really important rules in Hunters Hill that's going to change the nature, the character and the integrity of our suburb.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is it would be a public information session about the proposal and the detail of the proposal and how it aligns or not with our current planning instruments. Keep in mind, it's not a DA.
Sure.
It's a planning proposal to change the envelope, if you like, that the building might, whatever's going to happen in future might be there. So I'm just trying to get my head around because public meetings have a certain perception, shall I say. What I'm hearing is it needs to be an information session, so that everyone can understand what's going on, so that people are aware of it and can then submit all of their submissions, whatever it might be, for or against what's happening.
I think there's the two elephants in the room are the project itself on the one hand, and the proposed change to the LEP on the other. And so I think people need to be informed about those things. What are they? What are the risks associated with it? And then the other part of the meeting would be not just that informing, it would also getting the feedback about that information from the meeting. So it's definitely a two-way consultation, and I think you would call it community consultation rather than just a one-way flow of information.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Councillors, any other questions of Mr. Hayes? Councillor Krasoi.
Sorry, I just want to pick on a little bit of language because there are 3 things that you said through there. So one of the things I just want to clarify, I think everyone does know this, the short letterbox drop that only went to that region of Hunters Hill, that sub area, was done by Montefiore, and council was not aware of it. You are aware that that's the case. Cool. You, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, we won't take comments from the audience, but no, I can refer to the General Manager, but I believe that's correct.
That's correct. Council did not know that Montefiore were putting a proposal to the community or that they were holding an open day. And I believe Councillor Sanderson was the only councillor who became aware of it at the nth hour, like half an hour before it. Is that correct, councillor? So that just to assist, because you've mentioned it a few times now, we want something more than just, but so second point is what the General Manager has pointed out in his list of dot points is that there will be community consultation, which is exactly the language he just used, consultation. And that is where, if anything comes to council, keeping in mind, Montefiore have done this before. Councillor Quinn, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, put their feelers out, everyone got upset and they didn't do anything in it. So just keep that in mind. So it might not even get to council, but if it comes to council, we're wanting to see community consultation, robust community consultation, two-way, informative, to help us with our thoughts on what we should be submitting. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very early in the process, I think, is the key thing, rather than community consultation occurring when the proposals have been developed to the point where it's difficult to go back and where decisions have been made either by the developer, the proponent, or the council. I believe it really needs to be very early in this pathway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last point is, because you did just say, and now we're looking at changing the LEP. And I just want to be clear, we're not. We're not looking at changing the LEP. We have nothing before us. We have no proposal. You're not looking at it. We're not looking at it. And we might not end up looking at it because it might not come before us. But if it does, there is a really rigorous process that will be followed. So I just wanted to assure you about that kind of language around not being informed about this first session, wanting rigorous consultation, changing the LEP. Just want to clarify through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, my assessment.
I'll pass on to the General Manager because he wants to make a comment about your first point, but I will say, yes, I believe that is the case, 1 and 2. It would be helpful, I think, in that session to delineate between planning proposal and development application, because they are two very different applications that would have to both go to this council, one to this council and one to either the local planning panel, which is an independent planning body of this council, or the regional planning panel. But I'll just hand over to the General Manager to address Councillor Crassor's second point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Hayes and other residents, just to work backwards, we're guided by the councillors, but generally speaking, the officers will always be fully committed to that community consultation process. Just to reiterate what Deputy Mayor Crassoy has said, just for the avoidance of doubt, so we are fully on the same page, that council had no involvement with the organisation of that open day. The first that I was made aware of it when Councillor Sanderson pointed out to me that I think you were letterbox dropped. Yeah, so council had no involvement because there's no proposal before us. I'm very happy to say transparently and repeat what I said before. I actually rang the CEO of Montefiore and expressed my disappointment that council wasn't advised of that open day. So the domino of that is that I could inform all our councillors that open day was happening. And it is my understanding that letterbox drop, in fact, was not driven by Montefiore, but it was actually driven by Urbis, who is the company that's been engaged by Montefiore to design the concept plans. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Sorry, councillors, any other questions of Mr. Hayes? No, thank you, Mr. Hayes. Thank you. I now call Mr. Henry Zhao.
I'm not aware. I just put some away. I just saw this meeting. I just put some notes. I was thinking, once you put this greedy plan, I'm not very shocked because they're called nursing home, but they're part of business. I think they are meant to make money. So what I think is, I don't know how they can make this plan. Maybe they get some information from the state government, or I don't know. But what I think is, we do need our local government, which is under the council, to protect us, because their greedy plan could be damage our environment very badly. Also for the local safety, because of a lot of traffickers, and also will be damage our environment and people's privacy. So I do want the government to protect us, because we cannot do anything without you guys support.
Thank you, Mr. Zhao. Any councillors? Sorry, Mr. Zhao, if you could just stay at the podium. Councillors, any questions? If not, thank you. I'll now ask our last speaker on this item, Ms. Kate Russell, to address the meeting. Ms. Russell, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of things have been said already, so I won't duplicate. As you've sensed, there's widespread concern about the long-term implications, not just for the immediate neighbourhood. And we've heard about 40 people coming to the meeting. And I guess the community's asking questions and saying, look, how will all that extra traffic be managed? How many extra delivery trucks would be coming through our narrow streets? How will our quality of life in this residential garden suburb be protected? How will the adjacent bushland and the natural environment be protected? How can the impact of overshadowing and loss of privacy be reduced? We appreciate that Montefiore need to redevelop and want a genuine opportunity as community members to contribute to creating solutions to minimise the harm to the community. Community input, I think that's really what the nub of this motion is about. We really want to protect the system that really seriously connects to community, so that we're not just the token afterthought. And we appreciate council has actually spoken to Urbis and Montefiore. That's terrific to know that, because it was a very shoddy attempt at consultation. And we were concerned that if that's the style of thing that's called community consultation, it's not really good enough. So that's what public meeting would protect us with.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I'll just ask you to stay there for a moment, Councillor Crassoy. Any questions? Councillor Crassoy.
I was that kid in the car, but why? Do you feel a little more assured tonight hearing the General Manager's answers to some of the questions, that the process is rigorous and robust and that you will be well engaged?
We had already seen the stuff that was the General Manager put on the website a couple of weeks ago now, was it, that we were aware of that? But no, we continue to be concerned that we really want a public meeting. We want an additional step in the dot points that includes very specifically consultation. But no, I was really pleased to know that the council had been directing their concerns to Montefiore. That was really great to know that they were doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Is it clear now after this meeting that the community consultation to which you referred was not conducted by council?
We always knew that.
Okay, yeah. So the process that would be followed by council in the event that a proposal does come before council would be extremely different,
Yep.
completely separate. Much like, I don't know if you attended. Pardon? I don't know if you attended the one at Gladesville Reserve. We had a public consultation there. We had multiple community consultations at the Priory.
That's great.
I don't know if you attended those, but it would be presumably in that format and
that's good.
at the same volume. And, you know, for Fig Tree Park, for example, there were multiple on Zoom and different sessions that you could attend. And I had feedback that that's quite accessible to the community and really informative, and also provides the community and any affected residents to voice their concerns, and they're all noted down and considered by council if it does then come before council. So there is quite a well-established community consultation, in inverted commas, process that is ordinarily followed and has already been followed by council multiple times this year. So would be completely separate to what's already occurred and has been conducted by Montefiore.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, if I could ask you the same question I asked Bob, your perception of what would happen at a public meeting.
Well, I guess a dialogue as more or less as Bob was saying, and also as this councillor was also describing, that it be providing information that's accessible to people, inviting people very specifically, not just sort of a little note on the council website, but actually an invitation going to residents, perhaps via their letterbox, to say that there is something on display to come and see, and then people having an opportunity to have those things explained, and a process where their comments are received and then collated into the strategic planner's report. Because I know then council does have to gather a lot of information to synthesize into a report, so that the community input is part of that.
Thank you, councillor Crasaway.
And we don't just synthesize it into a report, we synthesize it into our own submission, should they go around us to the state. So
Yes,
that's why
excellent.
collects all of that information. Just in response to that one question, I have two things I wish to say. One is through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager again, I'm sorry, or through you, Mr. Mayor, the consultation process, when you just again said, not just a little thing on the council website, when we do community consultation, what is the process that we, roughly give us a bit of a split on what you would normally do if you were doing community consultation on something significant?
I'll pass to the General Manager, but contextualise that by saying we don't usually receive planning proposals of this nature. It is sizable. Well, we haven't received any planning proposal, but if we were to, and that there is a fairly rigorous set of procedures that need to be followed, including internal assessment and community consultation, but I'll pass to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but I'm going with the Deputy Mayor, and I'm now going to put our newly appointed Director of Community and Customer Service, who is the expert of providing a very general framework of how we would go about that consultation. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It's been interesting to listen to your perspectives on a potential proposal to come to council, given that the community are very interested in this, and given that there'll be a high level of impact to not only the people neighbouring the proposed site, if that comes to us, but also the impacts of traffic, visual amenity, environmental perspectives, so on and so forth. We would need to engage a fairly significant proposal in terms of what we do with our residents in communicating our messages. So to start with, we would obviously letterbox drop our community. We would do that quite broadly. We would give them the details of when a community consultation meeting was happening. We would provide a framework for what's going to happen at that meeting and what the potential outcomes for that meeting could mean. We would also put articles in our e-newsletters. We would email residents. We have a very significant database of email addresses. We would put information on our social media pages and a fairly significant Q&A section on our website. But at the end of the day, the best thing in terms of engagement and consultation in Hunters Hill is word of mouth. We will provide you all with the information, and we would ask you to speak to as many people as possible. Often people receive things in their letterboxes, they may miss it, they may not read it, they may pop it in their recycling bin. So in conjunction with yourselves, we would ask you to spread the word as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Councillors, any more questions of Ms. Russell? No, thank you. Councillors, we have a notice of motion proposed. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to formally move the motion.
Moved. Seconder. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, residents, for coming along this evening to express your views. I've heard what's been said by council laws and council staff, but you're missing the point. And the point is that it should be a partnership with the residents. And if you're going to wait till you submit it to the department and come back and then have consultation, that is not acceptable in my view.
Councillor Williams, I'm not sure that anyone suggested that at any point.
Well, I'm sorry, the Mr. General Manager clearly stated the process which we're going to go through.
Which,
What I'm
but sorry,
suggesting here-
councillor, just to clarify specifically, the points outlined by the general manager never included that the department would get the proposal lodged to it before we went to community consultation. That's not in the dot points that was released by council,
I'm
nor
sorry,
proposed by the
that
general
was-
manager.
Could I ask through you to the general manager?
Yes,
Could you
you may.
clarify that, please?
Could you ask the question again, councillor Williams?
Mr. General Manager, the issue that the mayor is questioning is one of the dot points that you raised.
Yeah.
That we go through a process, then submit it to the department, and after it is submitted to the department, it comes back to council and then goes on public exhibition. Is that correct?
That's what I read out, councillor
Yes,
Williams.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the issue that I see, and as we've heard from many of the residents here, it's about early engagement, early involvement. It's a partnership. And unless we find out what the residents' views are and be able to advise consultants or whatever that's going to assess it for us, what questions the residents want us to explain, then we're not doing our job. And we've seen it many times in the past, whether it's the Boronia Park facility, whether it's the Blaisdell Reserve. Unless we go to the community early, unless we treat it as a partnership where we sit down with them, the whole community, in a public meeting, then we do have this potential for people to get the wrong information, for us to get misinformation as to what the concerns are. So all I'm simply saying here, if, and I acknowledge we haven't received, but there's enough feelers out there that there's a potential for something to be received, that we reassure the community that we have their backs and we will engage with them immediately to find out what their concerns are, to explain to them the best we can what the proposal is and the steps we go through together collectively. I think that is a no-brainer. It's something that I've always aspired to, as transparency and openness in local government and being able to serve our community effectively. It's all very well to ask the community to do it by word of mouth, but it's very important for us to sit down and do it collectively, both with the council and the community.
Thank you, councillor Williams. I'd like to clarify a couple of points. One is that the director didn't suggest only that we move this through word of mouth. There was obviously a series of public consultations that we're committed to if we do receive a planning proposal. I will also point out that the dot points as read by the general manager, the planning proposal lodged with council seeking to amend the Huntersville LEP would be point 1, that council undertakes assessment of the proposal and forms a view as to whether or not the proposal has strategic or site-specific merit. This would include referral to the local planning panel. That formulation of a view is the point at which we'd be doing public consultation, in my view. It would not proceed to gateway determination were this council not to support the application as it stood. So unless this council agrees to support it to gateway determination, I might be speaking out of turn, but it would not be lodged with the department with our approval or with a supportive submission. Councillors, any other speakers for the motion, against the motion? Sorry,
Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify that last point you made? So in that process that's been outlined by the general manager, and that is the statutory process that we are required to follow. So just to be very clear that the community consultation would take place prior to council putting the submission to the department.
So in the dot points here, council undertakes assessment of the proposal and forms a view as to whether or not the proposal has strategic merit.
Okay.
So we need to, as a body, form a view as to whether or not, and through the professional staff, obviously, form a view as to whether or not the proposal has strategic merit. I would imagine in that process, and I'll through the general manager, refer to the acting director in a moment, the formulation of that view is where I would imagine community consultation would happen early in the process.
Okay, so what I'm hearing tonight is that there are a number of people in the room here tonight wanted ironclad that community consultation occurs at that point. That's how I'm hearing.
Understood.
Now, if I can ask the officer through the general manager, is that your understanding of when that community consultation would take place?
Correct.
Yeah.
But I would actually like to hand to the acting director just to clarify the process.
Yes.
Yeah, the notification period would be 30 days. There would be exhibitions on our website of the proposal. So it would be advertised adequately, you know, that everybody in the community would know about it, like through our website, and also all the vicinity of that proposal. And then we would also get independent planning people to assess the application, and also our legal team would be employed to go through it in terms of the zonings and all that.
Understood. So that's the normal
EP2.
That's the normal process we would follow with an application. I get that. The additional piece that's being asked for here is apart from the public notification and whatnot and submissions coming in, is the actual convening of an information session.
Yeah.
I balk at use of the term public meeting because that has particular connotations. I balk at that. So it's an information session, is what I'm hearing the council officer say, that would provide the community and those who attend with all the details of the proposal and how it pairs up with the LEP and whatnot, so that the community can then go away and put in their submissions based on the information that they hear at that presentation. Am I hearing that right?
General Manager or
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Annie.
Councillor Quinn. In terms of our community engagement session with our community, what we've done really well in the past when we've held them is have experts, expert planning people in the room to be able to answer questions specifically, obviously, about is it possible to rezone and change an LEP? How long does that take? What are the impacts to that? Because essentially at the end of the day, we want the community to be comfortable with the information we're providing. Collectively with that, we are gathering information from the community to then put as part of a report to yourselves for then you to make an opinion on that assessment. So it really is a collective framework. It's us saying factually what is in our local planning statements, etc., but also hearing from the community their concerns. So we can document it all up, package it, and then it's represented in a report.
Thank you, Annie. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Vergara, are you speaking or are you asking a question?
I foreshadow an amendment to the motion.
Yes, you're foreshadowing an amendment, or you're moving an amendment, or you're foreshadowing moving a foreshadowed motion.
Moving a foreshadowed motion. Can I read this?
Yes.
So it's point 2 be amended. The word resolve that and then insert.
The point 2 be amended.
To be amended to read. That
Yes, councillor.
resolve that should council form a view that the proposal has strategic merit, council hold a.
Sorry, can I just ask the gallery? Sorry, councillor. Could I just ask the gallery here
Goodness
all?
gracious. Resolve that council hold a community consultation meeting at the town hall as soon as practicable and before submission by council for gateway determination.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers for the motion on the floor? Councillor Sanderson. Oh, Councillor Quinn, have you got a question?
I've got a question, Mr Mayor. So if I can throw this to the General Manager. So what Councillor Vergara has just foreshadowed, would that, in your view, if that got up, would that bind council to conduct that community consultation prior to any submission from this council going into the department?
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess it's I don't want to make any comment about the specific resolution that's being proposed or the amendment to the or foreshadowed amendment to the motion, but generally speaking, my interpretation is that fully commits us to a process. But I do want to take the opportunity to say this, Mr Mayor. I'll just try and paraphrase what I said earlier. From the council officer's point of view, we will be 200% committed to open community consultation. I also want to sincerely thank the director for providing an extensive outline of how that would happen beyond just word of mouth. So thank you for that. And finally, that it is possible, and I stress the word possible, that if and when we receive a proposal and then we take the steps around the consultation, that also potentially could include in that people who would speak is the CEO of Montefiore and the representative from Urbis. That is a possibility as well. But I just want to finish that I want everybody here this evening, and thank you so much for your commitment to our wonderful municipality, that if and when we receive this proposal, you know, as the General Manager, that the consultation and the collaboration with our residents will be profound.
I think that those sentiments are echoed by all councillors around the table. Councillor Quinn, have you got any other questions, clarifications?
No, that's pretty clear, Mr.
Clarified. Any other speakers for the motion?
Sorry, the motion.
The motion on the floor, not the foreshadowed motion. So the foreshadowed motion will become the motion if the motion on the floor fails. So the motion that we just for an abundance of clarity, the motion is that we receive and note the resolutions unanimously passed by the residents at the meeting listed in the attachment to this report. And number 2, resolve that council hold a public meeting at the town hall as soon as practical after receiving a planning proposal from Montefiore site at Bronia Park.
That as an amendment.
You've moved that as an amendment. Is there a second? Seconded, Councillor Quinn. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
I'm trying to make point 2 as clear as possible in terms of timing, not content of the meeting. We'll leave that to the experts in terms of timing and binding council to a point in the process.
Yes.
That's what that's trying to do. And I also understand that if council forms view that it doesn't have strategic merit, everyone will support it. It's only if it looks like it's going to go through this extensive process.
I don't think we'd go to community consultation if we formed a view that it didn't have strategic merit. Councillors, the amendment is now on the floor. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm gobsmacked that council's going to this length to avoid having a public meeting.
Councillor Williams, that is not the intent of the motion. The motion binds us to public consultation and a public meeting.
No, it binds us to consultation after council has considered it as having strategic merit. What I have suggested in my motion is what I think is fair to the residents, which is to partner with them, engage them early. I'm not scared of a public meeting. A public meeting is where information is shared 2 ways. You get the best people with knowledge in the room. You get the community there to be able to understand, interpret and respond. But that has to be done upfront and early. This council has a long tradition of holding public meetings that are extremely well intended, extremely well engaged. In recent times, we've moved away to a more process-driven activity that segments the community rather than bringing them together to collectively deal with the matter. What the amendment does now is deflect it off that if it has merit, rather than us bringing the community in right at day one. Let's share what's on the table. Let's hear where you might have concerns. We can then go away and get the experts to answer those concerns at the same time as we go through the legislative and procedural process. I just do not know why council cannot embrace an opportunity to bring the community in to partner on a process. I am just gobsmacked.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Quinn, have you got a question?
Question, if I may, to
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Yes,
Mr Mayor,
Councillor.
Councillor Williams, would you please, same question I asked a couple of the speakers tonight, your perception of a public meeting and how it would be run?
Mr Mayor, I thought I'd just clarify it very clearly. To me, a public meeting is we notify everybody in the municipality to come together to hear what a proposal or an issue is from the best available information. So everybody's got factual information. We invite the proponent in to present that. We invite the council staff to explore the process and to give any feedback at the initial stages. We also at the same time have the community present to hear all that in a transparent way and then invite them to ask questions, invite them to respond so that we're better armed. It should be an iterative process. It's not just one meeting. I acknowledge the council goes through a sequential process, but it doesn't bring everybody together so everybody can have the same information at the same time, understand where this thing's going and be able to respond respectfully to the issues at hand. I'm just amazed the council is sort of trying to weave its way around something which is fundamental to local government, which is bringing the community together to collectively work through an issue. So that's what my
Thank you,
interpretation of the public meeting.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Vergara, have you got a point of order?
Point of order. That's what community consultation is. What's been described by Councillor Williams is decision-making by committee. We're elected to make these decisions with community involvement. That's what the consultation is. A view as to strategic merit is not a decision. It's a preliminary view, which then allows us to go to the community and say, here's what the view is. Tell us why it's wrong, or let us tell you why it's
Councillor
right.
Vergara, I'm going to have to, could I ask the gallery here, the councillors could I ask that the gallery listen to councillors with a bit of respect? We listen to the speakers. If we could listen to councillors. Councillor Vergara, I think that wasn't a point of order, that was more of a debate. Councillor Vergara, you'll have right of reply on at the end of the debate. Is there any other discussion, any more discussion on the amendment? Any speakers against? Councillor Sanderson.
Do you want for before me if there are any?
Are you for the amendment?
I'm not.
Any speakers for?
I'll
Councillor
speak for
Quinn.
the amendment, Mr Mayor. Look, I think we're getting into semantics here. I think the intent of what's there with the amendment is abundantly clear. It is very clear, actually, in terms of what I understand. And I think it's clearer than just saying we will hold a public meeting, because it's giving it a point in time where it must be held. And it's also saying that it is a community consultation. So I think it's a much more effective wording. I'm going to draw on a couple of, because I've got a concern, frankly, that if we were just going to say we're going to hold a community meeting, that there could be a perception of lack of fairness in council's consideration of the application as it may come in. Later on in tonight's meeting, we are dealing with the Code of Conduct, Council's Code of Conduct, which is very explicit about how councillors must regard matters that come before it. I'm going to read a few of those clauses, and they are clauses, I'll just find them here. 3.3, under the heading Fairness and Equity. And it says you must consider issues consistently, promptly and fairly. You must deal with matters in accordance with established procedures in a non-discriminatory manner. That's the first one I'll read. The second one I'll read, it's under the heading Land Use Planning, Development Assessment and Other Regulatory Functions. Clause 3.14 says, in exercising land use planning, development assessment or other regulatory functions, you must ensure that no action, statement or communication between yourself and others conveys any suggestion of willingness to improperly provide concessions or preferential or unduly favourable treatment. Now, I think this council must give the perception of fairness when an application comes before it. And I think the motion, as it has been amended, certainly gives that perception of fairness. We have to listen to the point of view of the applicant. We also have to listen to the point of view of the community, and then the council makes its decision. So I think by holding a community consultation meeting in the town hall at a given point in time, which is explicit in that amended motion there, is the appropriate way to go.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Against the amendment.
Amendment, sorry.
Yes, yeah, I get concerned about the original motion put by councillor Williams is flexible as to that time. And clearly it needs to be. Council will clearly need to gather information before it can hold such a meeting. Councillor Williams' motion proposes that be as soon as practical. That's fine by me. If we start to get too specific, we could be leaving it too late in the process. And I think one of the most important things about getting quality submissions for this sort of proposal is to educate people the best we can. The sooner we start, the better. I continue to support Councillor Williams' motion. I do not see that the amendment is in any way necessary. Another thing that deeply concerns me about this process is that as set out by the General Manager, that is for the case where ultimately Council supports a planning proposal. Now, really, it's not a straight line process. It's like a flow chart. Decisions could be made to not to follow the process. One of those decisions would be that if we decide not to support it. Now, there are regulations to say that we are obliged then to advise the applicant or the proponent of the planning proposal as soon as practicable. Councillor Williams' words, I believe. Now, my concern about this is people here were told that Urbis would be lodging a planning proposal in October. It hasn't happened. We're told later. Clearly, it's going to happen. No one would put so much work into a project and then just let it die. Council will be receiving a planning proposal at some point in time. When it is received, I think this council has a duty to its community to have them as well informed as possible. Now, okay, some people seem to have problems with the word public meeting. We had a similar situation with Global Reserve. Now, I can recall on that occasion, I discussed the matter with Councillor Cresswell beforehand, and Councillor Cresswell had some concern about a public meeting as such. And at that meeting, I can recall a very articulate lady from Henley speaking up, and from time to time I used to receive a nudge from Councillor Cresswell, and it was on that occasion to say, hey, we'll have to include the facilitated forum. On that case, we called it a facilitated forum, and people have been talking about what this public forum will be about. I see it as a facilitated forum. You would have the proponents, you would have whoever can provide advice, our planning people. It's about equipping people to be able to deal with this issue, to make submissions, whichever side they're on, to guide council, and I think the earlier in the process. My other concern is the legislation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring it. I didn't have internet all day, but with the legislation, my understanding is that that it will allow council to go back to the Department of Planning into the gateway process before it does the consultation. The consultation is necessary at every step of the way. And I don't really understand why it's proposed by Councillor Vergara's amendment to delay it until this point where we've got as far as we need. I think it's the sooner we educate people about this process, the better.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers for the amendment? Against the amendment, councillor Cresswell.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I am going to foreshadow a different amendment. I'm happy to
Okay.
let this one. Fall.
Yes.
Would you like me to foreshadow it?
If you would like to let's deal with the amendment and then you can foreshadow a motion. Councillor Vergara, do you have a right of reply? No. If not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. The amendment becomes the motion. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Cresswell.
I'd like to put an amendment to the motion.
Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you. My apologies for not sending it earlier today. My amendment is informed by the discussion, by the community information and by the debate tonight, because as we all know, we don't take sides before we're fully informed. So my amendment is after point 1 to have a.
Sorry, Councillor Cresswell, one moment. We're just
No,
going to get
that's okay.
the technical side of things sorted. Sorry, continue, please continue.
So after point 1, not a point 2, just after point 1, a line that says, should council receive a planning proposal for the Montefiore site at Baronia Park,
Excuse me, sir, is Councillor Cresswell, is this at the start of the second point?
Was this
it's
just
so-
after the report
so point 1 says that
semicolon?
council receive a note,
Yep.
da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then should council blah blah blah.
Yes.
Then point 2,
Thank
I
you.
guess,
Thank you.
is that council affirm its commitment to robust community consultation and engagement.
So
It's the chapeau to point 2.
Sorry, could you start again, Councillor Cresswell? Sorry. So point 1 is remains as is. Point 2
As is.
becomes your
And then where it says should is a new line.
so just tap that down.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
And back. And then point 2 is council affirm its commitment to robust community consultation and engagement, including a facilitated forum. That's you. During the preliminary assessment process.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Cresswell, is that the amendment?
That's the amendment.
Before we enter debate, is that amendment accepted by the mover and seconder?
You back to me or back
Yes,
to?
no, to you as the mover, Councillor Williams. No, okay. Yes. Councillor Cresswell, you want to speak to your amendment?
I don't have a seconder.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Cresswell, is there anyone to second Councillor Cresswell's amendment?
Just give me a sec. Saying you're offended, not saying hold a meeting.
It says holding a facilitated forum.
What the object of the sentence is commitment to doing to that process, not actually.
Sorry, councillors, do we have a seconder to this amendment? If not, I'm going to have to, Councillor Sanderson is seconded, Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. As you can see, every councillor is wholly committed to point 1 of the motion that Councillor Williams brought to council. I believe you're at that public meeting which I couldn't attend. My mother's been in hospital for the last month, so I was out of town. You attended it speaking as a resident, I believe, Councillor Williams, and presenting this report to council as a councillor, correct?
Got no comment.
Checking. And so in submitting the notes from the meeting as a report to the council, you're
Could you
submitting that
speak
as a
to the
council?
motion?
Sure. So point 1 is good. It helps even before anything comes to us, which it hasn't and may not. And I say this in a slightly jaded way because these things have happened before. For example, Gladesville shopping precinct, which multiple DAs came to council long before my time on council, that I spoke against and wrote against. And in the early days of my time on council, through multiple community meetings and community consultation sessions, council formed the opinion that we did not want to support the proposal that the proponent was bringing to us, and we spoke robustly against it, and the community supported us to do that. We can only do that when we're informed ourselves and when we work with you. The reason I struggle with the word public meeting is because it just says we're against it already. It just says that word public meeting just kind of doesn't. Are you against it? No, sorry, I'm not debating with you.
Councillor, please don't.
Exactly.
Sorry, councillor, please speak to the motion. Don't engage with the gallery.
So the reason I want it to be a facilitated forum is that we can demonstrate to the department down the track, if we have to, that our community were well informed when they came to us and said that they wanted us to support them around these possible changes. I've never been a fan of rushing ahead with the decision. I'm, as you can tell by the way I speak and ask questions, you must be really well informed. So for a public meeting to be well run, it has to be a facilitated forum where we have the appropriate experts, perhaps a legal person, definitely a planner, definitely maybe an external planner, maybe a heritage expert, maybe the developer, maybe Urbis. And when all of those experts put their views, then the community can give an informed feedback that we can then go to the department and say, our community were informed thoroughly when they said this is not what we want, which is what happened at Gladesville. I was a resident, I wasn't a councillor at the time, but that is ultimately what happened. And our submission on Gladesville Shopping Centre was around traffic numbers and shadowing and mental health in the end of the day. Like there was a whole heap of reasons. And we got that submission with legal assistance and with expert support. We didn't get it by just having a meeting and then saying the community don't want this, sorry, we don't want it, because the state can go around us when we do it that way. We have to be able to say to the state, this is a really well-informed submission we're making to you. So when Councillor Vivara, Councillor Quinn and Councillor Williams and Sanderson and Preston and I say things, and it just, sorry, it's unsettling me a bit that you keep shaking your head at me because it makes me feel like you think we're against you.
Councillor Craswick,
I'm sorry,
direct
Mayor
that your.
It has been the most disruptive meeting I've ever
Yes,
been in.
Councillor Craswick, can we just reflect all comments through the chair?
Sick parents, not well. So the reason I think this is more comprehensive is that actually, so I'm sorry to say it, it's not necessary at all. The general manager and his senior staff outlined to us a really thorough process of consultation. I know them. I've known Ms. Goodman for many years on council. I know the planners and the legal staff who've supported us for many years. And I know that's why we still have a shopping centre at Gladesville that hasn't been turned into a multi-storey building, because we put together a really sound, really informed proposal after multiple public meetings and with a lot of robust information behind it. So as part of the assessment process, I already trust that the manager and senior staff are going to do what they always do because it's part of our consultation process. But I'm hearing in the room that for some reason you are all of the belief that if we just leave it to trusting the people who are doing their job well to do their job well, that you might not get that meeting. You will get it. But just so that you feel better, why I'm saying it is only so that you feel better because we're doing it, right? We are doing this consultation. So at the end of the day, this is actually about using up really oxygen on something that's already happening. And and that kind of disappoints me because I don't like to see the community misled into believing that just because I don't want to say, I want a public meeting, means I don't want a public meeting. Of course I want a public meeting. We always consult, we always have. And when it hasn't been done properly for one reason or the other, and I'm not looking at the people present to say that, we as councillors have come back in and gone, hey, whoa, what just happened there? And we sometimes have to go backwards to fix some things because that's what our job is. We are the governors here. It's governance. It's not about just taking a side at the start without having all the information available to us, which we simply do not. And the reason we do not is because that little picture that you've been given and that we had a look at many months ago may not even be what they bring. I do recall there was a local school brought some drawings to council and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. And we said, we don't think you should do that. We don't think you should do that. Anyway, they ended up taking that to us and submitting it. And we said at the meeting, we gave you our feedback. You didn't hear us. And actually they did end up having to revise the drawings because that's the process and it's rigorous. And you just heard us talking earlier about the minutes. You're not going to get all this waffle in the minutes. Oh, sorry, but I'm sure you don't want to read it all. But what you will get in the minutes is a decision that we are affirming. And I say that because I don't want to say that we're committing to a public meeting because just like that, because it suggests it wasn't going to happen in the first place and it was. And I don't want to undermine the really excellent expertise that we have in our general manager that we as a council employed. And we employed him because he's very good at what he does and we trust him. So that's my, sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's why I'm making the amendment a bit waffly because I think it still ticks the box at the end of the day, but it also says we believe in our senior staff and that we'll be watching this process very thoroughly. We're committing to affirm to community engagement and consultation and public meeting.
Yeah, so the Crassoy, can I just clarify that you are not removing point 3 of the motion, you are just inserting a point 2?
I'm just inserting.
Just inserting.
Point 3?
You're removing point 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's the amendment.
Yeah, but the thing about the gateway process already didn't get up.
No, it did get up. It did get up. It was an amendment that was voted on, carried, and became the motion.
Okay.
We've yet to vote on it.
I think that's a good. No, we did vote on the gateway thing.
Yes, that we voted on the amendment, which became the motion. The motion, as it reads at the top, and for an abundance of clarity, I will confirm what the motion is on the floor before the amendment proposed. The motion on the floor that Councillor Crassoy is seeking to amend is that number one, that we receive and note the resolutions were unanimously passed by the residents at the meeting listed in the attachment to this report. Number 1 and 2, resolve that should council form a view that the proposal has strategic merit, council hold a community consultation meeting at Town Hall as soon as practicable and before submission by council for gateway determination.
That's correct, because to be clear.
That's the motion.
We haven't yet voted on the motion currently at the top of the screen.
Yes, we
So
have.
I'm proposing an amendment.
And now an amendment's being proposed by council. Now the amendment is moved and seconded.
Is come back, scroll back up to 2. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this right. But if everyone wants to start into dinner, you're welcome. Come back. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Don't have my glasses on.
So
reason is
the amendment that is proposed by Councillor Crassoy is that we delete number 2 of the resolution and insert instead that council affirm its commitment to robust community consultation and engagement, including a facilitated forum during the preliminary assessment process.
which is before the gateway process and which rules out it doesn't rule in or out whether council assesses it for its merit. It's just part.
So part 2 is on the floor as an amendment, although we have a motion.
I just felt like that would make everyone
any-
happier, but that doesn't.
Any speakers against the motion? Against the amendment? For the amendment?
No, against.
Against the amendment, Councillor Williams?
Oh, don't worry.
labour the point or delay the residents, but again,
We did.
good old fashioned public meetings are good for the soul of the community and a council. What we're talking about here is semantics. I've heard the word semantics. We need to get back to basics, back to grassroots, and having a public meeting doesn't presume one side or another. It is an opportunity for people to get together, talk about an issue, have factual information. So I'll go back to my original motion. It was simple, had clarity, could resound with anybody out there to know that they're going to be engaged in the process. We've just spent, 2 hours going through a whole lot of iterations.
Hour and a half, councillor Williams. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Amendment? Councillors, anyone for the amendment? Against? Councillor Crassoy, right of reply? If not, I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Against? That is lost.
You got it.
The original motion is on the floor. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Williams.
So we're now with Councillor Quinn and Councillor Vergara's
Amendment that became the motion.
I think the process there puts it down the track rather than doing it immediately or as soon as practical. We're talking about having a strategic assessment before we go to the community. I think that's wrong, but I'm sure I'll lose. So.
Councillors, any other speakers for the amendment, for the motion, against the motion? I will just say, I don't think that the council's speaking at cross purposes here. We are all committed to a thorough consultation process. If there was a planning proposal to be lodged by Montefiore, you've heard commitment from the general manager, from the senior staff and from every councillor around this table that our commitment is to holding public meetings and holding a series of community engagements. That will include all of the things that Ms. Goodman pointed out. It will include inviting all of the community to information sessions. It will be on our website. It will be assessed by internal experts and by people that we bring in, legal experts and the like. So I don't think that the council is speaking at cross purposes at all. I think this has been a long walk down a windy beach to a cafe that's closed, quite frankly. So that being said, I will put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you for your patience to those in the audience. I now move to item 4.1, Fig Tree Park Tree DA. We have a speaker to this item, which is Dr. Alastair Sharp. Dr. Sharp, welcome you back to the podium. You have 3 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Sharp.
Good evening. I'm confused by the inclusion of changes to the sizes and locations of the playground and the amenities block to be agreed under discussion of the tree DA. The amenities block of the playground, the amenities block in the playground are not part of the tree DA. They were never part of the tree DA. They were part of the concept report, but they're not part of the tree DA. The tree DA was based on a report by arborist, not somebody with any information about amenities blocks or playgrounds. And so I think it's inappropriate to consider it under this heading. Adopting the recommendation of this report, which is endorsing the amended drawings, endorses changes to the playground amenities block, yet changes to the playground are not even shown on the drawings. So I don't know how you can have a motion to endorse a drawing about something that's not shown on that drawing. It does show, the drawing does show, although it's not identified, not titled, it does show that the amenities block has been moved now along the right road boundary. And I think this is inappropriate. Hunters Hill shops have no public toilets. I don't think they've ever had public toilets. You can ask for a key and go to a toilet somewhere down in the bowels of the you know, the location. But one of the really good things about this development of Fig Tree Park is to provide public toilets which are accessible to people using the shops, and ideally within eyesight of people using the shop, so that they know they're there. If they're put in the location on this tree DA drawing, amended drawing, of having them behind all the trees on Ryde Road, most of the people using the shops won't even know they're there. So I think this has to be rethought.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. I will ask the General Manager to clarify on both the playground and the amenities block, but we are only dealing with the tree DA here. My understanding is those assessments are don't form part of this DA.
Then they have to be removed.
Sorry, Dr. Sharp, General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the context of bringing this back to council is to get support to relodge a modified DA pertaining to the tree removal. Dr. Sharp, you may recall that we gave a commitment to make the playground and the amenity block fit for purpose, and also to mitigate against tree loss. So even though this is about a tree DA, and that's what it's about, it's not an assessment at all about the playground or the amenities block. But I'm happy to tell you that in good faith and taking community feedback, we have reduced the size of the playground. The location of the playground has not moved. Pertaining to the amenities block, the intent of moving it was for these reasons. First of all, we gave a commitment to mitigate the loss of trees. By moving it, we now do not have to remove any trees of where it was originally planted. That goes to the spirit of taking community feedback on board. Secondly, we engaged a subject matter expert to identify through a set of specific criteria where was the best location for the toilet block in regards to connection to utilities. And under that scoring assessment, its location now is by a country mile the best location. Respectfully, there are no toilets in the park now. So any new amenity will enhance the availability to toilets. I would objectively say that if it was in the original location, you wouldn't see it clearly from the shops anyway, because there is still a resident/business beside 48 Gladesville Road. And again, objectively, I think that once people realise that there is a toilet who are regular users of the village for coffee shops, for example, and St Joseph people or people driving past, they will know. In the spirit of taking on that community feedback, we reduce the size of the playground, but it's in the same location. And secondly, I've outlined the reasons for the amenities block decision. And finally, we have reduced the proposed removal of 37 trees back to 21, 4 of which are exempt, and the junipers stay.
Thank you, General Manager. Any councillors, any questions of Dr. Sharp? If not, thank you, Dr. Sharp. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an alternate motion. I have handed up the paper copy as well, so it's available.
Can I?
Thank you, Councillor.
Has that been handed up by?
It's on the.
Was this on that memory stick, Councillor Sanderson?
Sorry?
This was the same as what was on the memory stick?
Well, the memory stick's got all anything I planned for tonight.
What's your alternate motion, Councillor Sanderson?
Okay, the alternate motion is that council endorsement of the revised Fig Tree Park tree removal development application, referred to after as DA, be referred to a future ordinary or extraordinary meeting of council to allow completion of the additional drawings showing the overall design of the park, to give context to the proposed tree removal, and B, inclusion of those drawings and other material to be lodged with the DA in the business paper for the meeting at which the endorsement of the DA will be considered. And two, those who made submissions in relation to Fig Tree Park be notified of the inclusion of this matter in Council's agenda before or at the time of the publication of the relevant business paper.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Williams. Councillor Sanderson, do you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The first point I'd like to make is that I don't really believe the response tonight or the item tonight responds to the original motion that I put some time ago. And that was that the at point 2 of the motion that was originally Councillor Williams, which I amended, point 2 was that the revised EA be brought back to a meeting of council for endorsement prior to lodgement for determination. Now, what we have in this report is a number of drawings that show where trees can be moved. We do not have the full details of the DA. In the report, it quite clearly says that the DA submission will include these drawings together with additional drawings showing the overall design of the park to give context to the proposed removal. And it says, goes on to say the additional drawings were not finalised at the time of this report, but will be finalised and be included in the DA. We therefore don't have all the material before us, and there are quite a number, and I believe the context is incredibly important. I mean, some have suggested that given the changes there are to the park, we should go out for full community consultation again. Now, I can understand that most of you have concern about the time that will take. All I'm asking for is we defer this matter to either depending on how long it takes to prepare the DA, but we can have an extraordinary meeting a day or two before the DA is lodged. It's not going to cost us any time. We already have an extraordinary meeting on the table for 1st of December. There's nothing to stop that extraordinary meeting dealing with more than one item. But at this point in time, we had a briefing where councillors were showing 3D graphics of the park. It was like being driven through the park, but I had problems with the scale. There were issues I could see with it, but due to the fact that we're dealing with a true DA, we can't sort of deal with that at the present time. I think it's important that both the community and council has the opportunity to see what it is we're finally coming up, because it is very significantly, we know it's going to be significantly different. We don't quite know exactly what it is. I think asking for those few extra days is vital. If everything proceeds and everyone's happy with it, it does something to improve the community's concept of the park. It also shows that there's been a process that people understand what is proposed before we actually sign off on the final thing. Now, one of the flaws with this process is that it has only involved 2 DAs. One of them was for demolition of the cottage, the other was for the removal of trees. Being a public park, council can basically do what it's like. Yes, the consultation was brilliant at the beginning, but as we've gone on, we've moved away and it's gradually changed. Then I think the concept that people understand of what this proposal is about is not all that clear. I think it's important that we give people the opportunity to see precisely what it is before we effectively sign off. Because at the end of the day, we sign off on the tree DA, and if we don't know what it is that's relevant to that tree DA, who knows what we're going to get. I would like to see what that is before we make that final decision. And the difficulty is, because of the flaws in the process, the final time this will come to this council could well be this meeting if the recommendation were to be passed. I think we need to see more detail before we sign off on this park.
Sorry, Councillor, I just got to clarify, probably through the General Manager. My understanding is that this DA is only pertaining to the trees. Everything, all the other concepts are exempt development. I'll get the general manager to explain, but I think that we're running into the same confusion that we had with Dr. Sharp, is that this just pertains to the tree DA. It doesn't relate to any concepts or anything else. It is purely a DA that will be lodged for public consultation for the, sorry, councillor, I'm asking for a clarification through the general manager.
Well, you've pretty much said it, Mr. Mayor. So this pertains to a tree DA. It will, if it is, and I emphasise the word if the recommendation is held in the affirmative this evening, it would then be lodged as a modified DA, as has been previously outlined, and then as per the process, it would go on public notification, which people have the opportunity to provide feedback to that, and then it would be determined by the LPP.
Councillors, any speakers against the motion? Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, I'm satisfied with the report that's before us tonight. I'm satisfied with the recommendation. I foreshadow the recommendations in the business budget.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Any speakers for the motion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd start by quoting the comment here. The project scope was significantly adjusted, and that relates to the tree scope has been significantly adjusted. To me, that requires further consideration, requires me to have the information before us. All we've got is 2 figures. I don't have arborist reports. I don't have the information that you could expect a councillor to consider to make a decision. There's a couple of classic examples here where I think the reports, well, I don't know the logic behind the decisions, but we have tree 40, 41 and 53 are willow gums, endangered species. I probably accept 41 could go because it's considered in poor health. The other 2 are not poor health. I think we have an obligation to our environment, our sustainability, and endangered species to protect them wherever we can. I don't have the logic for why those trees are going. I also say this Melaleuca, this paper bark, is going to be removed. But again, I don't have the it's a beautiful tree that provides beautiful shade in that park. I don't have the information to make the decision. So I won't belay the point, but I think this matter has been through a process that I don't think has respected the community's needs and desires. The original motion we put had that it needed to be relodged, and that means to go through public consultation, etc. But the council chose to change that. So to me, I think this is again a great chasm in the way that we engage with the community. We've made significant changes, both to the tree proposal, plus we've heard, although not related, well, it is related, but it's not in this package tonight, all the other aspects of this part. The community aren't aware of that. I think we should honour what we've talked about tonight and involvement of community, to go back to them and say, the proposal you've seen before doesn't exist anymore. There's been all these modifications to it. So anyway, I don't believe there's anywhere near the information required to make a decision on this. And there's some glaring errors in the documentation.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. For again, abundance of clarity, there will be a public consultation process statutorily as part of the DA process. So there will be, Councillor Williams, sorry, I'm not inviting you to make comment.
Well, you're making
I'm making a clarification that you can ask a point of order through me to the general manager if you like. But the point I'm making is that there will be public consultation, as there will be with any DA that is lodged with this council statutorily under the law.
It won't come back to the council.
Councillor,
Can I move the motion now?
yes, I have a motion that the motion be put. All those in favour?
No, you can make a seconder for that, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, seconded. Councillor Prieston, all those in favour? Against? That is carried. And now put the motion.
what was the motion? That was councillor Sanderson.
Not the amended motion.
Sorry, we had a mover and a seconder that the motion be put. We moved that the motion will be put. I'm now putting the motion, the motion that's on the floor, which is councillor Sanderson's motion. Yes, we now put councillor Sanderson's motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. The foreshadowed motion now becomes the motion.
That's in the business. paper.
Seconded councillor Crassoy.
Mr Mayor, you said the motion was carried.
No, it was defeated. Defeated.
No.
Well, the hands in the air, obviously, it was defeated. Councillor
Do we
Quinn.
recommit the motion?
Would you?
Please.
We can recommit
Mr.
the
Mayor,
motion.
would you please recommit?
Yes, I'll recommit the motion. Those in favour? In favour of the original motion?
Yes.
Against? That has been defeated. Councillor Quinn,
I'll make the motion in the business.
the motion's moved. Is it seconded? Councillor Crassoy, any discussion? Councillor Quinn, against? Councillor Crassoy, for?
I'll speak for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
councillor Crassoy.
And the reason I'm speaking for it is how excited I've been since we were given this fabulous grant opportunity. And with that fabulous grant opportunity, the opportunity to do some of the most comprehensive, rigorous consultation I have ever seen since I lived in Hunters Hill, since I moved here in 2003. I'll stop short of saying resent, but I am disappointed at the suggestion that consultation has not been thorough on this. More to the point, what's before us is the tree DA. And the reason the tree DA is being revised is because as part of the rigorous multiple avenues of community consultation, including pop-ups, Zoom consultations, in-park consultations, forums, you name it. Some of the feedback was that the community didn't like the idea of the toilet block being tucked away in there against a resident's house for a start, and they felt it was too big. And some of the community felt that the playground was too big. And many of the community felt that the number of trees in the original tree DA was too many to be removed. The general manager took all that feedback on board and has gone back and done a more revised design based on that community feedback. As a result of that revised design, which doesn't require a DA, but as a result of that revised design, the DA for the trees does need review because it means 10 or so less trees are now being proposed to be taken out. That's why the tree DA is being revised tonight. The rest of the plan is magnificent, rigorous, thorough, well engaged, well fed back to, and that's why these changes have been made. I'm just in full support of moving ahead with this tree DA, and I look forward to seeing the more comprehensive design, which of course we councillors have been briefed on multiple occasions, and we are very well aware of what the design looks like. So I'm in full support of the recommendation here as put.
Thank you, councillor Crassoy. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I gave it the point that we do not have all of the information before us that's going into the DA. That's what was requested in the amendment I put in Councillor Williams' motion some meetings ago.
Just a point of clarification.
A point of order, councillor Crassoy.
Clarification through you, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Is the DA for the change DA available to councillors? Is it on the council website? Yeah.
Once it's lodged, yes, councillor.
It goes onto
Yes.
the council website.
And it is in the papers.
Yeah.
Yes, with the tree, and was in the briefing last
And
Monday.
we were fully briefed.
And we were briefed on it, yes.
Okay, I carry on.
Thank you.
With that.
Sorry, would you
and,
withdraw the comment,
Sorry.
please, councillor
Councillor-
Sanderson?
I'm not going to withdraw. the comment,
Councillor
correct.
Crassoy is asking that you,
Mr Mayor, he
yes,
said that the
councillor
thing's
Crassoy.
not in the papers.
It is.
You're misleading the
Councillor,
public. by
councillor Sanderson, please, councillors, we'll have decorum in the chamber. Councillor Sanderson, would you like to withdraw your comment?
Well, there's not, what I am saying, if I can explain it properly, I have not said anything improper.
Councillor Sanderson, will you withdraw your comment?
No, I won't.
No. Councillors?
Maintaining the point of order, councillor Sanderson said that the DA wasn't made available to us. We were briefed on it and we have it.
Councillor Williams.
A briefing is not a public forum.
Councillor Williams, is this a question or is,
Yes, okay.
yes,
Can I ask you, Mr Mayor, is a briefing a public forum?
it's a briefing of council. Well, I'm not quite sure what,
Public forum.
no,
So it's a private meeting of council.
it's a meeting of the elected representatives of Huntersville Council and subject matter experts.
Yes, so how can we make a decision? The decisions of council are made based on the evidence in the business paper.
Councillor Williams, I would suggest that this is
Asking
going,
a
this,
question.
yes, and I'm answering your question. I invite you to sit down, councillor.
I'm asking.
Councillor, I invite you to sit down so I can answer your question. The DA, if it is carried through council today, will go to community consultation as every DA that is ever submitted through council does. Members of the public and members of the gallery are more than welcome to make any submission to the Tree DA as submitted here, potentially tonight, during the public consultation period. Any submissions will be considered by the local planning panel after the statutory period, after the independent assessment of the Tree DA has occurred and it gets onto the business paper of the local planning panel. All comments from the public will be given due consideration and will be offered up to the local planning panel.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask?
Councillor Williams.
But I would like to ask, in that process, does councillors and council have an opportunity to review that?
Councillor Williams, if you wish to make a submission to the Tree DA, you are most welcome to.
But council will not be considering the community's concerns. It will go to a third party.
Council will make its considerations of the Tree DA by either carrying this DA and submitting it as the council or not.
So this is the last opportunity council has.
On the subject matter of the Tree DA, yes, but not on the park. As I said before, and as the General Manager clarified, all the other amendments are exempt developments and can be carried out as part of the project.
Mr. Mayor.
The only thing that we are talking to this evening and in this motion is the amended Tree DA. And that is it.
And
Councillor
there's no
Quinn.
information as to make this.
There is information in the paper and in the pack and in the briefing that we had last week. Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, I move the motion now be put.
Sorry, seconded. Councillor Vergara. Yes.
The address of council was interrupted by point of order. I believe I have the right to finish my.
You may finish your comments.
But thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, if I can return to the point that Councillor Cresswell raised some time ago, we've unfortunately wasted some time since then.
Councillor Sanderson, please, personal reflections across the table. Councillor Sanderson, please be courteous to your fellow councillors.
Okay. What I was pointing out, that point two of my revision to Councillor Williams' motion some time ago was that the revised DA be brought back to meeting with council. What we have in this report is a series of drawings, which is part of the DA. It is not the full DA. If we have a look, it's going to explain the DA submission will include these drawings together with additional drawings. We do not have the full suite of information before us, which I believe we're entitled to have. Hence my concern about going ahead with this proposal as it stands. Again, I don't fully understand where we are going. Again, this is a fundamental difference that you and I have always had as councillors. That I have always had the view that council has the right to determine what goes in the DA's lodges. We shouldn't be leaving our job up to the local planning panel.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. There's a moved and seconded motion that the motion be put. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. I will now put the motion that was moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor Vergara.
It's the motion of the business.
Which is the motion in the business paper. I now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you, councillors. I now move to item 4.2, licence agreement for Riverside Preschool. Is there a mover? Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Williams. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, I'll do that again. In favour? Against? That is unanimous. I now move to item 4.3 in the business paper, which is the removal of 2 decommissioned underground fuel storage tanks. The recommendation moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Williams speaking against?
No.
In favour? Question?
Yeah. there has been a tender process for this,
Thorough, councillor Williams.
That was in the notes.
but there's no tender outcome in this report.
Councillor, General Manager or sorry, Director.
Councillor Williams, through the General Manager, as a typical procedural, we wouldn't put a market test every single council. To the question of legislation, tenders over 250,000 must go to council. And again, it also depends on how we confirm the delegations registered tonight, because in fact, under 377 has been removed, but only tenders that affect staff contracts go to council. The question as to procedurally, if you put every single market test to council, it then becomes errs on an operational matter. So that's typically a practice that wouldn't occur at councils.
Mr. Mayor, but as I read this, and could you confirm, please, that this is not within our current budget? It's a thing outside our budget.
Councillor Williams, I'll refer again to the acting director, the director.
That's correct, Councillor Williams. This issue was raised in the previous Audit Risk and Improvement Committee as an issue. We didn't put it through the budget process, and with the benefit of hindsight, we should have. So what we're saying now is that we are recommending that this be put through the unrestricted reserves. Essentially, bottom line is because it's a disused facility, and for that reason, and the EPA fact sheet's been included, it's prudent on the balance of it to proceed to remove that tank.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williams.
I have a background in this issue, so I'll ask this question with some knowledge of the difficulties of this process. What contingency is in place if there's contamination beyond the tank?
Through General Manager.
Well, councillor Williams, I guess the first point I'd make is that we need to actually understand first and foremost what and if there is contamination. And while we leave the process not done to remove that tank and do some initial testings for contamination, we don't know. So in regards to contingency, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, but there would not be any specifically allocated budget right now to deal with contamination. That would be something that we would have to bring back to you in due course once we've had the findings of those preliminary tests.
I would say though, councillors, that that we do need to just on a health and safety criteria for our own staff act on this issue, and particularly the removal of those storage tanks. And if there is subsequent contamination, we will have to deal with that at the time too. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's normal practice to do core testings prior to removal of tanks to get a feeling for the extent of any potential contamination so that you can get contingencies in place. Why haven't we done preliminary testing of the soils around the tank, which is a drilling program, which is normally required for these things, so that you've got the full scope of potential costs and problems?
General Manager.
I'll actually refer to Mohammed on that, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So part of the quotation that we've received from testing the market, it does include preliminary testing to check if the soil is contaminated or not. And the costing that we put forward does involve the removal of the soil offsite. And if the original testing comes back and say, no, it's not contaminated, then the reuse of the soil will happen. So the 70,000 does include that.
Thank you. Councillors, any more discussion? If not, right of reply? No, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, that is unanimous. I'll now move to item 4.4 in the business paper. Heritage New South Wales grant funding. Move Councillor Sanders and second Councillor Quinn. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. I will now move to item 4.5, summary of council investments as at 31 October 2022. Moved. Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn.
Just a question, if I may.
Yes.
Mayor, to Director, I realise some of these interest rates are pretty meagre on some of the term deposits that we've got.
Yes.
Has there been an assessment of breaking those term deposits and reinvesting now that given interest rates have sort of shot up in the last couple of months?
Question through the general manager. Look, what we've been doing is basically waiting for term deposits mature, but we can certainly ask our investment advisors to make that assessment. Yeah. Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you. I was actually also going to have a comment on the same thing and just note that some have already matured and some are obviously just about to mature, and just to say that I'm looking forward to seeing them roll over to a higher interest rate. So thanks for the report.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Williams.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Mayor. As we now have some of our deposits on higher interest rates, what is the projected additional income that council will now get as a result of it being able to get a reasonable interest?
Through the General Manager and I assume to the Director.
Yes, again, through the general manager, and we're very much an estimate. At the current interest rates that we're experiencing, the new ones that are coming online are 4%. As an average, I'm saying 3%. Basically, our T Corp is still underperforming. It has recovered this last month. So there will be a bit of a drag down from that. We've recently also invested in bonds, but it's in the vicinity of 3 to 4% at the moment.
Mr. Mayor, could that be given in dollar terms? What's your expectation?
Roughly. I think that we can probably take that on notice and circulate to councillors.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Williams, would you be okay if we take that on notice, do some modelling and come back with those numbers at the next meeting for you?
Most certainly.
Thank you.
It might even be worth bringing the investment advisors in for a briefing at some point. Councillors, any other questions? If not, I will put the motion if there's no right of reply. No. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.6, quarterly budget review as at 30 September 2022. Councillors Quinn, remove Councillors Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn.
Quick question.
Yes.
And I noticed this was a media story only 2 or 3 days ago, the impact of the rain, the weather, and our whole road resurfacing program. I assume we've taken some big hits there, like just about every other LGA.
Yeah, look at those numbers.
Through to the Director.
I'll start the answer to that. And I will then throw to Mohammed. In very general terms, we are now going to take a step back and actually do a reassessment of the assessment of the conditions of the road, because yes, it needs a more thorough look. And more of the terms of the technical terms of that, I'll get Mohammed to explain at a high level what we intend to do and then report it back to you about where does that leave us then for the remainder of the financial year with our program pertaining to roads and futuristically.
Williams, Mr. Mayor. So what happened in the last year or so with the severe storm weather, the actual pavement of the road has failed, and we've witnessed that on High Street. So the condition assessment that we've completed end of 2019 suggested the methodology to renew that section of the road, but because of the severe wet weather that we had, the actual pavement buckled and collapsed. So what we've done is now we've put the roads projects on hold. We've engaged a consultant to recondition our road assets. So that includes roads, curb and gutter and footpath. And what that gives us is if any of the pavements on any section of the roads has failed, like High Street, we will rebudget and list the projects that is already on the list. So we will have to shuffle around to sort of produce the new methodology that is coming from the consultant. So that is currently going on. We will start notifying residents with the timing in terms of the assessment involves a quad consultant being on a quad bike and driving through our roads and footpath. So that is likely to happen in the next 4 weeks. But again, we will notify as we get the actual date. And the report is basically due back at the end of mid-Feb. So that gives us time to basically from March till end of financial to revisit our capital works and basically renew that.
I suggest
Councillor Quinn.
Park Road, there's going to be a,
So
that one's breaking up.
And I can second that one.
Yeah.
Councillor Williams, question?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Are we using the same people that did the assessment previously? And are they using the same technology?
In the absence of the General Manager, I'll pass straight to Mohammed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We are engaged. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the contractor's name, but they are one of the top leading consultant in their field. As I said, what happened in the last 2 years with the severe weather? First, we went through drought, and then with the severe wet weather, and you can see it throughout all Sydney, the actual road pavement has collapsed, and that's why we put hold the road projects. We're reassessing that, which involves your surface condition and your pavement condition. So with the reports that is going to come back from the consultant, we will have a higher backlog because the actual pavement has collapsed, and then the costing of that treatment will increase. So they are using the up-to-date technology. We did include the when they do the assessment, you get your roughness, your rotting condition assessment. So we've actually included a step further to get more accurate pavement analysis on that. So we are spending a bit more money on that, but it's gonna basically save us from doing a project and basically failing later.
Thank you, Mohammed. Councillor Williams.
The question to follow up from that is the data that you're going to now collect consistent with the data in the database we currently have and spent a lot of money and time collecting over several years? I forget the name of the company. It's in a model environment. It allows us to use that to manage where we do works, cost and projections. Is the data you're collecting now going to add to that, or is it going to be yet another database?
Through Council, General Manager.
In a nutshell, Councillor Williams will enhance it.
I think what we discussed at the time was that it would be a living document, and I think that update means that it will be enhanced in that way.
Document is important, but it needs to have
Up-to-date data.
Database rather than competing databases. I've got another question.
Councillor Williams.
We're talking about road condition here, and we're talking about current weather conditions causing problems. I'd like to know why, over many years now, the roadworks we conduct continue to fail. I refer to Paul Street, the recent road works that was done in Park Street, the work that was done in George Street. They all fail. You would expect once you do a street that you would get at least 30 or 50 years before you have any structural problems or ongoing maintenance requirements. But Paul Street, Mr. Mayor, was done 4 years ago and it needs to be redone now. What are the precautions or the steps in place to prevent or to ensure the quality of the work and the quality of the outcome doesn't require us to redo these works?
General Manager. Through
So in the last, as you mentioned, Council, in the last let's say the beginning of the year, we had a couple of projects that George Street, for example, we had a water leak from one of the Sydney water hydrant, and that's what caused the failure of that section of the road. As a council, we do our quality check, and for George Street, we've actually had the contractor at his own cost coming back and redoing the whole segment, because for the failure of the section was basically the contractor's fault. And you mentioned Paul Street. Paul Street we've got the high pressure oil line running through that street. So we are restricted to how we treat that section because of the high pressure oil line. It's only a 0.7 meter deep, and we can't really use a proper technology or methodology to treat that section. So we are currently in negotiation with Viva Energy to actually, just for that section of the road, to actually get them to do the work rather than getting a council contractor, because they are the subject matter expert and they can basically go deeper around their pipeline without causing any damages to it. So they have specialists in that field, and we're still in negotiation with that. In terms of the asset management plan, it is a live document, and we are doing a recondition assessment every 3 years or 5 years, and that's why we're redoing the roads recondition assessment, and that gives us an updated condition assessment on your surface level and your pavement. As I mentioned, we are doing an extra step in terms of assessing the pavement, and based on that data that we're going to get, we will have the proper methodology to treat the roads moving forward. So we are getting a better treatment for our assets.
Thank you, Mohammed. Councillor Sanderson.
Another question there. You say, for you, we are talking about road where footpaths was getting a lot of function on the residents about that, including one myself.
Through to the General Manager or Mohammed, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the recondition assessing of the footpath will include picking up the defect points within the footpath. So we are getting all the defects in terms of your displacement, cracking and all that. And they will include the temporary treatment that council did with cold mix. So that will be picked up as well. To add to that as well, the section that is damaged by the tree roots will be included as well. So when we get all this data, we will have a better sort of program moving forward in terms of our maintenance schedule and our renewal schedule.
So just to clarify Councillor Sanderson's point, that we will also be getting that new data on the footpaths.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Councillors, any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I move to item 4.7, the draft disability inclusion action plan. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor.
That's fine.
Councillor, and moved Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Quinn.
I'd speak to it. Look,
Yes.
I'm quite pleased with this document as it's turned out. It is a simplification of what we had, and it's probably easier to use. It does set some clear goals. I did have some problems with the way we approached it in terms of not having the pamphlet with pedestrian accessibility plan done first, which was a fair process, I would have thought. Anyway, the outcome is generally good. So I'm very supportive of it. One thing I did note, and I mean, I make the point that inclusion is something that applies at all levels, and it's about bringing all people up to a level where they can participate. And there is an interesting section I noted in page 129 of our report, which it talks about the importance of video relaying of council meetings. And I know that we've mentioned being somewhere I said about being important for inclusive of the young. It's also very important for inclusive of our older members of the public. And that's also. Final paragraph here is extremely interesting. It says members of the public can also apply beforehand to address council meetings, either in person or to provide a statement that can be read by a council officer at that meeting if they are unable to attend. In person, well, we had a situation where that was denied to some of our residents at our last meeting, and I was extremely disappointed about that. I have looked into that further, unfortunately. And I can understand their concern because that is not included or is included on our website as an option of a way of addressing meetings without any constraint on whether it's available to people under conditions of COVID. I've had a look more carefully, and the way our present code of meeting practice operates is that we have a supplement that basically only applies where we have limited access to the meeting. So all those provisions in reality, as it's drafted, only apply if conditions where we have to hold a meeting via video. So I think that's an area we're going to do a little bit of review on. I would strongly suggest that we follow our own disability inclusion action plan, and we make that provision available at all times, as we do for video connections to meetings. So that's a small revision that I'll be working on before we adopt the our code of meeting practice at our next meeting.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, any other questions or discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.8, Community Grants 2022-2023. Councillor Williams, seconded. Councillor Quinn, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Item 4.9, adoption of the Code of Conduct. Councillors, Sanderson moved, seconded. Councillor, too quick, Councillor Sanderson. Seconded, Councillor Williams.
Yes, yeah, I'd like to move with one very small amendment that we have. I handed this over, so it should be available electronically and I can hand it off in paper. This is just a follow-up with the way this was responded to by the last council. That the amendment be that as we're talking about the council, point to that we write to the Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Dominic Perrott, inquiring about progress in bringing the code of conduct of elected state members into the line with that for elected local government councillors.
I would have thought that they've had their own code of conduct, but yeah.
It's nowhere near as rigorous.
Councillors, is that seconded? Yes. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just by way of background, in the early stages of the last term of council, having attended as a relatively recent council at that time, some of the sessions that were put on both by Office of Local Government and Local Government New South Wales. And I recall going to a session on code of conduct, and the expert teaching that topic said, well, if I were a councillor, I'd be making a complaint about how rigorous the code of conduct is. So I looked into it, and in the end, I made my own submission. A recommendation came from council, and I discussed it with the then General Manager, Mr. Barry Smith, at that time. In the end, Barry agreed with my approach to it, and we did significantly amend council's response to the code of conduct at that time. Interestingly, that was passed by the then council 6 votes to 1. The point that was actually objected to by the one councillor who did oppose adoption of that response to the Office of Local Government was that we had at that point in time requested that recommended that we write to the Premier of New South Wales, at that time the Honourable Gladys Berejiklian, making an inquiry as to when the code of conduct for state members would be brought into line with that of local government councillors. At that time, I believe the code of conduct for New South Wales members was about 1.5 pages. I think it has expanded slightly. It might be 3 or 4 pages now. I did look at it briefly a few weeks ago. I haven't had the opportunity to look at it because I've not had the internet. That's the reason for the amendment. I hope that'll be supported.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other discussion? Speakers against? For? If not, I'll put the motion. I assume you don't need a right of reply. Yeah. Okay. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is carried. Councillors, can I just check of the items 4.10 to 4.21, the disclosure of interest returns, council and designated persons, councillor briefings and workshops, councillor expenses and facilities policy, exhibition of draft code of meeting practice, delegations of authority, DAs determined by the LPP, report on the status of LEP DCP review, DAs determined under delegated authority, minutes of the audit and risk meeting, minutes of the school principals liaison committee meeting, minutes of the movement and transport advisory committee, and minutes of sport and recreation advisory committee, whether there are any items that you want to address particularly.
Yes, there are a number.
Which are they?
411, council of recent workshop.
Yes.
412, council expenses.
Yes.
Policy. 413, exhibition of draft code meeting practice.
Yes.
414, delegation of authority.
Yes.
415.
Is there any that you don't want to speak to?
Well, I've got this one. I want to speak to. So
Which ones don't you want to speak to?
Oh, well, that means I've got to. Yeah, so where are you proposing for next?
Let it keep going.
So,
We're finished by now.
It's moved through.
Move through the ones that you want to speak to, councillor. 415,
Yeah, 415 and 420.
415 and 420. Okay. Well, I think that we'll just progress at least through to 415, councillor. So, councillor briefings and works. Councillor Williams.
Late items, that's.
That will be dealt with separately. I think we'll talk to that. Yep. Councillor. Oh, sorry, the adoption of the code of conduct. It was moved by councillor Sanderson and seconded by councillor Williams. And it was passed unanimously. Sorry, I might be moving a bit quick. Sorry, the 4.10 disclosure of interest returns, councillors and designated persons, moved councillor Quinn, seconded councillor Williams. Any discussion? Councillor Anderson?
Sorry, which one was it?
4.10 disclosure of interest returns. So the local planning panel.
One problem. Yeah, no issues there.
Okay, all those in favour? Against, that's carried. 4.11 council briefings and workshops, moved. Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Prieston. Any discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Williams.
Speak in opposition. Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If you wish to speak, please.
Councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, Mr Mayor, I thought we had previously sorted this out, that we would be including the topics of discussion at the council briefings and the agenda of those meetings and the presenters, which the General Manager has done in this report.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Williams, speaking against.
Yeah, well, on the basis that I don't believe that's the case. There was a lot of discussion about this in the meeting, meeting practice, and I understood council agreed to provide the information with annotations. And to me, I thought a summary was more appropriate, but I was overruled on the basis that an annotation is an explanation of the issue. I'm not a legal person, so I'm not quite sure. But to me, what's presented here doesn't go anywhere near that. And we've had that issue tonight where councillors have been relying on what they heard in briefings to make decisions rather than having the information before them at the meeting. So to me, a transparent council is one that shares information and ensures the community is aware of the information it's making its decisions on. At the moment, the briefing process does not provide that, and the attempt here to address it fails dismally, in my view. Providing an agenda does not explain anything about what was discussed or what was presented and the issues underlying that. So to me, I don't accept what's in this report as being fulfilling obligations of council to keep our community informed and be transparent.
Councillor, any speakers for the motion? Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak for this motion because it reflects the motion that I did at the last meeting of council. I think, like all councillors, I believe that transparency is of the utmost significance, and that's because community response and feedback informs, as a whole, councillors, their ability to govern, and as Councillor Crassway mentioned earlier tonight, implement good governance practices for the benefit of our community. So I think by providing the agenda items of councillor briefings to the public, they then have the opportunity to inquire about the matters that were briefed to councillors by experts on those particular issues, and it allows the community an opportunity to offer any insights on those topics and bring them to councillors in a variety of different ways that they're allowed to do so.
Thank you, councillor Preston. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear, what we've been given in this report is purely the agenda of the last councillor briefing. At the present time, we operate under the resolution of a motion that was unanimously passed at the time when councillor Quinn was in fact mayor. The final point of that resolution was a brief summary of issues discussed by all that should be covered. Discussed what should be B, I think it's a typo, included in a formal report to council. All we have is a bare agenda. We do not comply with what we're currently dealing with. Now, I see councillor Preston shaking her head. What councillor Preston proposed was that we're talking about an annotated agenda. That is to go into the new, or that is proposed at this point in time to go into the new code of meeting practice. The code of meeting practice is still out on public exhibition. It hasn't been adopted as yet.
Councillors.
It hasn't been adopted as yet. So but it doesn't matter one way or the other, but let's be clear, we're dealing with one provision and we'll continue to deal with both after the new council code of meeting practice is adopted. But because until someone rescinds this motion, it was put at the time unanimously while councillor Quinn was mayor, it continues to operate. So quite clearly, publishing their agenda as a report on that briefing, whilst neither is a brief summary of issues discussed by or referred by in a formal report to council, nor does it tell the boards of having an notation, so it complies with neither.
Councillor Sanderson, thank you. Can I just say, we raised this issue with the General Manager. This has not been done for the previous couple of years. It was done, I believe, when Councillor Quinn was mayor, but the General Manager has acted on the direction of council. He's put it in the report and will continue to do so until a motion to the contrary is raised. So the staff have done exactly the right thing, and I'm not quite sure where the issue is. Councillors, any speakers for the motion?
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Quinn.
I just think it provides enough information. I note also, as you just said, that for a number of years, there was no report on briefings to council, including, may I add, Councillor Williams, when you were mayor.
That was because the General Manager refused.
Well, as the mayor, you can make that happen. So I suggest now that we're doing a lot more than what was probably done a year ago.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers for, against? If not, right of reply? Not necessary. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 4.12, councillor expenses and facilities policy. I've got a mover. Moved, councillor Quinn. Seconded, councillor Vergara. Any discussion, councillor Quinn?
I've just got a question, and I'm trying to find the exact spot where it is about the alcohol piece. General Manager, you might
how much do you need?
Remind me.
I might need one or two.
I'm wondering if we should be amending it. It's saying here that it's okay at the art show and one other of the mayor's Christmas drinks.
Mm.
But I'm wondering if we should make it a little bit more general, because there are other occasions when councillors can be at functions. I think it's appropriate that there is no alcohol involved in any meeting of councillors that involves decision making or deliberations of council, but to make it a fairly sweeping exclusion on any other time, except for those two mentioned there, I think is probably a bit excessive.
I'll let the general manager address that.
Councillor Quinn, thanks for the question. It's probably fair to say that writing this report and prior tonight, Ashu and I have had ongoing extensive conversations about this. So let me start by this. This is a template. It's not a statutory document that's provided by the OLG. If we followed the template, let's say hypothetically, and please chime in if I got this wrong. If we hypothetically followed the recommended template for the OLG and passed that as it was templated, then technically speaking, there would be no drinks, for example, at the Mayor's Christmas function. So as a consequence of that, similar to what you were saying, we have taken steps to make reference to things that would be obvious to us, like the art exhibition, et cetera, which is not a decision-making process, to actually insert it to allow that to happen. Respectfully, we're in your hands. If you want to remove that, if you want to amend it even further, it's at your discretion. We're actually trying in very good faith to apply some common sense to the template we were provided.
Thank you, General Manager. I might even suggest that pending councillors' good behaviour, we might even extend that to drink after, not before, but after council meetings. But I also, one thing I picked up on, which I thought was potentially a little meagre, was that the Christmas cards were 25 per councillor, and it's always been that. But I think we can probably provide councillors with more than 25 Christmas cards in the lead up to Christmas. But I'm in your hands.
Mr. Mayor, respectfully, we're in your hands.
Yes.
Well, we're just trying to
Councillor Quinn, did you want to, or Councillor Crassoy's hands shot up? Yes.
Just at point C, to say, to start point C at the word subject to the availability of funds in council's approved annual budget, any purchase of alcohol, and then take out for the purposes of the Mayor's Christmas party and council owners. That's not there. It just says any purchase of alcohol must be approved by the general manager. Councillors are reminded of their obligation under the Code of Conduct, and the general manager can apply their discretion not to supply alcohol.
That's sensible. Is that acceptable to the mover and seconder? Seconder, Councillor Vergara, are you happy for booze to be free flowing?
Well,
subject to the general manager's discretion, but no, Councillor Vergara, are you happy with the amendment?
I don't understand how 6.21, which says you can have appropriate refreshments, includes alcohol.
So we're just dealing with the recommendation part C. The amendment was essentially to give the general manager the discretion to provide alcohol at council events if appropriate. Yes. Yes.
But
I stress if appropriate.
You still need that first part of the line. Add the following statement to the end of 6.21.
Yes.
These where the cursor at the moment, might just be that how you'd like to read it. Count.
At events. Yep.
At events, yes, thank you.
Okay.
And you just need the yes. But so you want to take out the whole bit where it says councillors are not permitted to consume blah blah blah. You're just starting. So yes. And then stop at subject. Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, that makes sense. That's better. Can I ask the question?
Councillor Prieston, the question.
To the general manager, maybe to assure, through you, Mr. Mayor. Wait, are we saying that 6.21 prohibits purchase of alcohol?
If we move this and if this motion is carried, then no, we're not.
I don't think that it does as it stands.
But don't worry, they now.
We can now amend the code to bring it into line with the motion as put. We do.
Why do we need it?
Because the model code is more restrictive.
It doesn't sound more restrictive.
6.21 is the
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, General Manager.
And
The-
something?
The recommended template from the LG.
Yeah.
If you ran it as it is recommended.
Yeah.
There'd be no alcohol.
We're all teetotaling.
Am I reading something different? It says appropriate refreshments will be available for council meetings.
Excluding alcohol.
Where does it say that?
In the second line,
So part A of the
excluding
motion is
alcohol.
amending the definition.
I think we might be going into a deep dive of something we don't really need to go into a deep dive on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another walk.
Councillors,
Oh,
yes.
appropriate, but it's not capitalized. So how would anyone know that it's
Yes.
We fixed it now.
Councillors,
Shall we?
are we any more questions or speakers for, against?
I mean, the only comment I'd make, Mr. Mayor, is this is another
Right of reply.
example of a document that's come to councils, which clearly doesn't apply in Parliament House, Macquarie Street.
That one certainly doesn't apply at Parliament House, Macquarie Street.
Sorry, where
yes.
are we up to in the proceedings?
We are going to, the right of reply has been given. We'll now put the motion.
Only capitalised to try and think.
Sorry,
We're putting the motion?
we are putting the motion. Sorry, Councillor Sanderson, you missed the boat there. Those in favour? Against, that is unanimous. We'll now move to item. Apologies, 4.13, exhibition of draft code of meeting practice. Moved, Councillor Quinn, seconded, Councillor Bagara. Any speakers for? Against? Speak for?
Look, it's purely a receiving note at this stage, but as I highlighted, speaking about the disability inclusion action plan, I think we're clearly going to need a couple of amendments to that. I expect they will be of a minor nature that we have to put through on the evening, which won't prevent or won't in any way delay the document being implemented. But there are a couple of things that have already come up. I've seen submissions from public, but in particular, we need to remedy the fact that, and keep as open as possible and inclusive as possible, the mechanisms for addressing council.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion.
Just like.
Sorry,
just a
Councillor Cresswell.
clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Would we need to amend it on the evening, or could we not put comments in?
I would suggest that if you emailed your comments to the General Manager, that we can amend it before it is put into the paper. That would apply to anything on exhibition at the moment. Councillors, put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is unanimous. I now move to item 4.14, delegations of authority. Moved. Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Preston, any discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, look, I'd like to suggest a very small amendment to this because I think we need to be able to review this. Unfortunate, sorry, amendment first.
Councillor, can you stand if you're addressing council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amendment will be added 0.6.
Councillor Sanderson.
That would be the council will review the delegation at its March 2023 ordinary meeting by comparing it with the former delegation.
Councillors, mover and seconder, are you happy with that amendment?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Could we just get Councillor Sanderson to read that again? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank
Well, 0.6 will read because it's all under the head of that council. So 0.6 would be review the delegation at its March 2023 ordinary meeting by comparing it with the former delegation.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Mover and seconder, happy with that amendment?
If I can ask a question
Yes.
to Councillor Sanderson, why do you see that necessary?
Well, this is an answer to a question. My concern is that the former delegation, as I understood it to be, is that the former delegation lists what are the delegations to the General Manager, specifically spelling them out, whereas the current one basically says, well, it's everything except for what is covered, what is excluded by section 277. Oh, sorry, 377 of the local government. I just think better to have an inclusive list rather than.
Councillors, are we happy to include that into the motion?
Yeah, I guess I'd ask the general manager, is that an onerous review?
General Manager?
Conscious of workflows and some, officers' positions still vacant.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with it.
Good, okay.
All right, councillors, any discussion for, against? If not, put motion, all those in favour? Against, that is carried unanimously. I will now move to item 4.15, development applications determined by the LPP in October 2022. Move Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Sanderson.
Yes.
Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Sanderson, you have the call.
All right, well, I'll limit myself to one of concern, and that is the removal of an iconic tree in Woolwich. This is one that I looked at when it first came up. This tree, I believe, one of our residents applied that it should be put on council's significant tree register, and it wasn't just someone who had an idea. My understanding is that person had significant qualifications in botany and so on, and was well qualified to make that recommendation. I did have a look at that particular tree. Yes, it was damaging a garage, but I think the tree was worth more than the garage, and there would have been ways of allowing that tree to continue. This is one of these, it's the second one of the decisions that I know of, where the local planning panel was split. It was 2-2 and determined by the chair's passing vote. The earlier decision, one with Alexander Street, where it was against the applicant was able to apply for a review, and the review went in their favour. In this case, because the decision has been in favour of the applicant, there's little prospect of this decision being reversed. It's terribly sad for the people of Woolwich that this iconic tree will be lost, and it comes back to some of the work I've done in both in the last council and the start of this one to make sure about the composition of our local planning panel. As I made a point at the Nesrock planning breakfast, where I asked the minister with respect to revisions of planning with the local planning panel legislation, whether they were in fact considering allowing councils to appoint their own chairs of the local planning panel. Again, I'm strongly of the view the council should have some view of the entire, or some say in the appointment of the entire panel, if we must have panels at all.
Yeah. Sorry, councillors. Any other speakers? Councillor Williams.
A question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
In relation to one of the items that they considered at this meeting, it's been raised with me, and I was wondering whether this is standard practice, that the panel had invited residents for a site inspection, and arrangements were made for that to take place. Residents took time off work and made other arrangements. I understand that the panel turned up, but then declined to do the site inspection. Is that a practice which we would be encouraging, or?
I think we'll probably have to take that on notice to see exactly what happened there, and get an answer to you.
Councillor Williams, but we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yes, no, the residents were very concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, that is carried. Councillors, is there any other items, given that we've exhausted Councillor Sanderson's items from 4.16 to 4.19 that we have an issue with? If not, I'll propose that we move them as a block.
Just the traffic
Yes.
Movement and Traffic Committee.
Yep, oh, that's
That's
the,
outside.
yep, yeah, that's outside. So 4.16, 4.17, 4.18 and 4.19 moved. Councillors Williams, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. 4.20 minutes of Movement and Traffic Advisory Committee moved. Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn.
So, Mr. Mayor, I just want to point out there are a number of recommendations to council, and I just want to be very clear that when these minutes come to council and the resolutions of the minutes therefore appear, we're actually doing more than receiving a noting. Are we actually endorsing and actioning those resolutions?
Can I just maybe also request that when these minutes of any committee are being put to a paper, that we note all the recommendations on the cover page, because I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that we are moving recommendations that the committees make. So it's something that we can do in future papers potentially.
Yeah, so in light of that, I just would raise now, and it's going to be taken on notice. So I know from not this meeting, but the previous one to that, there was, for example, a recommendation to council to write to the principal of Morris Sisters College about, parking issues down there and asking all the senior students, to carpool or come on buses and whatnot. Just wanting to check that those things are happening, that letter has actually gone.
Understood. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Sanderson.
Recommendations.
Councillor Sanderson.
There are a couple of recommendations, I think, that can be extracted from this report. I'll do this with Councillor Quinn's concurrence. If we look at page 273 of the business paper, at the top there's a resolution resolved on the motion of Member Ho, seconded Member Orway, to write to Transport for New South Wales to resolve the issue and install the extra sensor pads, as well as put a notice about this in the council e-news. Now, unfortunately, the way that's been put, it's not clear what the topic is, but what they're talking about is the traffic sensor lights in Church Street. So I guess if we put the heading that the council is happy to resolve these matters, that in relation to the relocation of Church Street.
Sorry, Councillor Sanderson, could I suggest that given there are three motions within the body, that we just move that the motions as recorded, rather than go through them all and put them in the minutes?
So we could, Mr. Mayor, I'd suggest we go, the report be received and noted, and that resolutions in the report be adopted.
Yes, I would have thought that's the best way to deal with it. Councillor Crassoy, are you happy with that? No, it was Councillor, who seconded? Councillor Preston. No, Councillor Crassoy. Sorry, you're both happy with it, so that's fine. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? I'll do that again. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Minutes of the Sports and Recreation Committee meeting. Moved, Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Now I move to the late item. 4.22 additional ordinary meeting of council. We've got a little while, Councillor Quinn. I know you're looking at your watch. Is there a mover to the motion? Move, Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, I was just wondering what the urgency is. It appears that this meeting is about Blaisdell Reserve. I was just wondering what's the urgency to deal with that?
I'll ask the General Manager.
What other issues might be on it?
Well, there's probably two main reasons, Councillor Williams. The first one is that we are at a point now where we need to clearly demonstrate momentum with the project to receive a milestone payment as part of the funding agreement. That's vital. And secondly, it mightn't seem much, but we're in a position to come back for your consideration of that report by that date, rather than waiting until the December meeting. And with the amount of things that we're trying to juggle, we're just trying to keep momentum moving with things that respectfully have been on our books for quite some time, and we need to keep that momentum going. That's about it in a nutshell. But we also will take that opportunity to bring to you the remaining document that we need to bring to you in regards to our review process, particularly the code of meeting practice that we need to complete prior to that 12-month expiry since the last election.
Councillor Priest.
I just have a question
Yes.
for the General Manager through you, Mr. Mayor. Why would we not put this meeting on a Monday evening? Given that we tend to.
Good question. Timing. So if you think about the time that we need to finalise our reports and then give you the appropriate notice as per our obligations to give you that lead, we wouldn't be ready by the Monday. Because if you think about that, we'll have to release the papers a lot earlier. We just wouldn't be ready.
I'm talking the following Monday, so Monday the 5th, when we currently don't have a briefing or a council meeting scheduled.
Yeah, because then we're outside the 12-month period of the last election.
Didn't you say at the previous meeting that negotiate with the department?
Yeah, I did, Councillor Williams, absolutely correct. But if I can hit the target within the 12 months, that's what I intend to do. Good governance. I'd rather hit the deadline than.
Councillor.
Yes, you're putting it out of sequence.
Councillor Crassoy. Got a question?
Excuse me, beg your pardon, Councillor Williams.
I just said, I agree with Councillor Preston that you're putting it out of sequence and it would be more convenient and more appropriate on a Monday night.
Yeah,
So,
and that's why, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's why we did ring around and ask for dates. And I'll repeat again, if it was on the Monday, it would be outside that 12-month window.
A day.
Councillor Crassoy.
Only by a day.
Councillor Crassoy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to support the recommendation, and as we were all at the briefing last week, where the General Manager was quite candid about the processes that Council have been going through in order to get all the reports to us on time, and that he at that stage didn't think that he would be able to have that particular report to us in time for this meeting because of some information he was waiting on. And he said if he couldn't get it to us in time for this meeting, would we be open to an extraordinary meeting? And we all said we would, and some of us chucked around some dates that we weren't available. The General Manager's assistant, I know, called me, and I assume called everyone else to say, was this date suitable? And I replied yes, and I assume everyone else did, because here we are with the recommended date. No,
I said I had something on
that you would attend. I appreciate that we were talking before about facilitated forums and community involvement, and I think the community will be interested in this report. And so it really gives us the opportunity to have them all present, to have the discussion with us more fulsomely than had it been ready to run to us tonight. If we leave it till any later in the month, of course, then there's the risk of perception that we've left it too close to Christmas to rush it through potentially. I think the sooner that we get this report, the better. I'm very happy to attend on
Thank you,
Thursday.
Councillor. Any other discussion?
No, I just mentioned I was not available on the Monday, the 5th. So
Okay.
my pastor and I will probably in a state at that time.
And you pass that on at the briefing. Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Williams, is that an abstention?
No, it's against.
Against. That is carried. And now, councillors, I have need a motion to go into committee of the whole. Move Councillor Quinn, second Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, yes, Councillor Williams.
Yep. I was just wondering why
Sorry, no,
we're dealing with
discussing
three
going
matters.
into committee of the whole.
I
Sorry,
wonder
councillor.
why we're dealing with three matters in this confidential item, of which only one, I believe, requires to be in confidential session. You seem to be bundling up a whole series of issues that are put into out of community's purview by one. So I was just wondering why the issue around the licence, the issue around the allocation of funding are tied up with the tender process?
Councillor Williams, with the greatest of respect, the staff have made a determination to deal with these matters in committee of the whole. I feel that is entirely consistent with our obligations under the Act. I'll invite the General Manager to make comment if he would like to, but I don't see anything in the confidential report that would give me any pause.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll let the author of the paper respond.
Thank you. I have to say this is one of the most interesting papers I've had to write because there was a number of considerations, and I do take on board the consideration about the submission to the licence, and that in fact is something that in the spirit of transparency we should always consider. The key point though in the final rationale and reasoning of putting this through a confidential paper is the negotiation piece. As an officer making the recommendation.
Just excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Just be aware that we're now still talking in open council, so.
We are debating going into committee of the whole, not in committee of the whole, just to be absolutely clear.
Thank you. There are a number of elements. What will be open though is the recommendation, and the recommendation will be reported if it is moved as it is. And the key reason is the negotiation phase that we'll be entering into. And as a result of that and the market rates, that is why this is being put together as a confidential paper.
Thank you. Any discussion? For, against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We'll now